Good morning all, and welcome to the Infrastructure Standing Committee meeting for the 1st of September 2021. Welcome councillors, welcome staff and members of the gallery. Now call the meeting open, and we have some requests for leave of absence, I believe from Councillor Henshin and Councillor Potter, who are both away for personal reasons today. So I'll move that be accepted. Do we have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Jones. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Councillor Jones, Councillor Duff, before we perform the record of traditional owners, I'll just say the Lord's Prayer in opening our meeting this morning. And our Father who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Over to you, Councillor Duff. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I would like to acknowledge country and the land where we meet this morning, the Waka Waka land, and acknowledge the elders both past, present and emerging. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
And they can be found at page 5. And the minutes are provided, and the recommendation is that they be received. We have a mover. Councillor Fradoff, thank you. Second to Councillor Jones. Any concerns or questions in relation to the contents? If not, go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Now I'd like to welcome Councillor Jones to present his Roads and Drainage Portfolio Report. Thank you, Councillor Jones.
Thanks, Mayor. And again, gives me great pleasure to present the Roads and Drainage Portfolio for the month of September. And the following are current or planned works for September in our capital works section: the Blackbutt CBD footpath renewal invitation to offer for this project is currently being advertised and closes early September. I believe it closes this Thursday at 5 p.m. So people in Blackbutt are very anxious waiting for that to get underway. They're really looking forward to that. Elbow Road at Merlewood, sealed pavement reconstruction. That's due to go through this month. Harris Road, Kingaroy, pavement rehabilitation currently under design for through September and October. Kingaroy Transformation Project, the Kingaroy CBD upgrade, and it's continuing on, and it will be hopefully completed in 2022, October. Williams Road, Banarkin, upgrade from unsealed to sealed standard, project nearing completion, awaiting bitumen seal, and I'm happy to say that the seal went on that road yesterday, and I believe that, I know that the residents along Williams Road and the surrounding area are extremely happy with that. Wandai Industrial Estate, pavement rehabilitation and upgrade, that'll continue through September, November. Youngman Street, Kingaroy, renewal and upgrade of road medians. Invitation to offer for this project is currently being advertised and closed mid-September. And another good one to mention is the RMPC, the Mundubra-Geelong Road shoulder grading on the one-lane section will start in September. So that's about to start. So that is a good news for the people up that way. Our gravel resheeting. We have Cobbs Hill Road at Sunnynook. There's some pictures there in the back of the presentation here. Wonderful job from the staff. Hayden's Road, Buoy, that's gravel resheeting through August into September. Hazeldean Road, South Nanango, shoulder resheeting, September. Hazeldean Road is another one that's long overdue. It's had some serious drop-offs, and those people out there will be extremely happy as well. Majors Road, shoulder resheeting as well through the month of September, and Wilson's Road, also gravel resheeting through September. Our patrol grading, we have a whole list of them. We go through Bonaire, Buoy, Chelmsford, Fairdale, Gordonbrook, Highsville, Inverlaw, Johnston, Keysland, Oakenden, Proston, Sandy Ridges, South Nanango, Stallworth, Wandai and Wyalla. And again, that shows you just how much our staff are getting across the whole region, not just in certain sections. They're covering everything that's prioritised through the works program. Our shoulder grading and heavy formation grading, that's on Hailey Creek, Stewart Valley Drive. And again, I've received a couple of comments around that long overdue, so I'm happy to see that in the program to move forward. Roadside slashing and boom mowing. The slashing program has generally been completed for the road network. Current focus is working on the state-controlled road network and specific defect slashing on Council's road network. Our completed works for noting through the month of August. Our capital works program, town and village entry signs, installation new entry signs for the towns and villages has been completed. Gravel resheeting, the Bunya Highway and Mount Rurulan Road in Kingaroy both had shoulder resheeting. Between Wandai and Mergen and the Mount Rurulan was gravel resheeting as well. Patrol grading, again, we've been across Belogie, Benair, Bowie, Boonduma, Dangor, Fix Crossing, Gordon Brook, Kingaroy, MP Creek, Runnymede, Sandy Ridges, Wheatlands, Wandai, the Sherburg Road, Islob, Jarvis Road, that area. Shoulder grading and heavy formation grading was Fix Crossing, Kangaroo Yard Road. And you can see there that we've also got Hailey Creek, Inverlaw and Mount Rurulan. There's a couple of pictures there, Williams Road. That will certainly look a bit different today because it will be nice and dark with the new layer of tar over it. And also Cobbs Hill Road at Sunnynook, some of the gravel resheeting work that our staff have done. So again, Mr Mayor, I have the pleasure in congratulating our staff, both internally and externally, the men and women that are doing a wonderful job, not just in infrastructure, but right across the whole of the South Burnett organisation. And I would like to move that my roads and drainage portfolio for the month of September be received. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Fryloff, thank you. Any questions or follow-up in relation to the report? Committee members, Councillor Duff, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just wanting to know with the Wandai Industrial Estate project, if we were to approve just into the future the second stage LRCI funding, has the design been done for the second stage? And could that just easily roll into the complete project?
Councillor, I believe it hasn't been commenced, no, and it would be a significant task. So no, we wouldn't be ready for that at this point.
Just thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I just know that there are quite a few concerned business owners in that particular estate that would really love to see that stage 2 progress fairly quickly. So I just wanted to flag that. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Manager Darcy, did you want to add anything to that in terms of the planning process for stage 2 or anything to add at this stage? Otherwise, if not, we'll move on. You comfortable? Yeah. Kev?
Just confirming, Mayor, that will be added to Council's future capital forward program.
Yeah, thanks very much, Manager. And just to also make everyone in the chamber aware that Council will be giving consideration to the Capital Works program, including the W4Q and LRCI funding in coming weeks. So there'll be opportunity for councillors to put forward projects subject to the planning timeframes and design timeframes around different projects. So that opportunity is still there as part of our ongoing review of our capital works. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. Thank you for the report, Councillor Jones. I just had a couple of questions. My first one just was around Harris Road in Kingaroy. I know we did put up a no Jake brake sign on the back of feedback that we've been given around more heavy traffic using that road. And I know I travel that road daily, and just yesterday afternoon saw a truck pull out way over. You know, we've had these discussions in front of another car to pull into Clark and Swenson Road. Just wondering, I know we've had discussions about it. I'm wondering where Harris Road is in terms of that realignment or further discussions around the future of Harris Road as a major connecting road for the South Burnett, for Kingaroy, and happy for that to be taken on notice. But I just want to get it on the agenda because there's been a number of residents in the area complain to me about high volumes of traffic using that road. And I know we're doing the work on the causeway, which is excellent, but I do want to have that longer term vision of Harris Road. What do we actually, I know we've had discussions, we've had traffic monitors on Harris Road, but it is a real problem for the people who live in that area. So I'd like it to be some sort of update on that. And the other item I'd like to mention is just we've discussed around heavy vehicle movements around Kingaroy and the changes in traffic around Kingaroy, particularly brought by the Kingaroy Transformation Project. And I just wondered if there'd been more discussions with stakeholders or where we were actually at with those conversations. So they're my two questions further to the report.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. General Manager, thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Councillor Shoemaker, through you, Mayor. I think that we will need to take both on notice if we could, certainly in relation to the first, with which I'm a little bit more familiar. We'll come back to you with what currently exists in our Forward Capital Works program. I think that's the starting point. So in our long-term view of capital projects, and we will return with responses to those. Thank you.
Yeah, you're comfortable with that, Councillor Shoemaker? Anything further?
Yes, thank you. Mr Mayor, they're just two significant issues for the residents I represent here in Kingaroy, and I guess I'm just keen to keep them in the forefront of everyone's minds as we look ahead over those capital works projects and our biggest strategic objectives here for the South Burnett and the residents of Kingaroy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Thank you, General Manager. Okay, anything further on Councillor Jones' report? If not, we'll move on. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 6.2 is the Kingaroy Transformation Project update at page 25. We might go straight across to our project manager to give us a report. Thanks very much, General Manager Meehan.
Good morning, councillors. Pleased to be back again this morning. It's been a busy time for us at KTP over the last month. As you can see there, probably just talk through the report. The first photo there is obviously the Eme2 Asphalt that we put into Alfred Street. It's basically a product that was originated in France. It's been in Australia for a while, but we're one of the first regional councils in Queensland outside of a metro area to roll this product in there. Essentially what it does is you can imagine probably 3 times the strength of concrete from compressive strength, so it goes off very quickly. Your normal asphalt, it reduces that layer significantly. So to give you an idea, we would normally see a 450 mil pavement of gravel about this thick. We can replace that with about 150 mil of asphalt. So we'll be putting out some facts around that in the coming weeks and in what that does. Also, the gentleman who's the pavements manager for Fulton Hogan will be up. He's actually coming up to look at Wandai Industrial Estate next Tuesday, but he'll be up in November for the run on Hailey Street, and he'll probably be giving a presentation to our team, and we'll probably invite the councillors along to that. So Laszlo used to work for ARB before he went to Fulton Hogan, and the Gold Coast 500 track, he designed that. So he's a very, very smart, very cool guy. So he'll be up, and look forward to getting council to probably just have a run through that as, a bit of we'll call it a bit of an excursion or symposium day. So normally the speed that we save with this product is tremendous. It's more expensive for us, but significantly what we're able to do is build a road in a week that what would normally take us 6 or 7 weeks to do through traditional road construction. That doesn't mean it's cost effective everywhere when you're building a kilometre rural road, but when you're using a high urban area where you're relying on trying to get people's doors open as quickly as possible, it really is fit for purpose. And it was funny when we were talking to the guys when they built Kingaroy Street in 1989. It took them forever, and they carried bags of cement up and down the road all day. They would kill for this product back in 1989. So it probably would have saved them a fair bit of money at the time as well. So with that, just scroll down for us, Linnell. With that, we're able to finish the Alfred Street East section, which is on Contract 6. We also took that opportunity to put in the roundabout over an extra day closure as well. We'll be progressively doing the islands through there as well. We did do the Northern Island at the same time, which basically that road closure in Glendon Street through that roundabout has an impact on the commercial hotel and particularly the Bottle. So, we took that opportunity to go through and do that work then to minimise on businesses. So with that planning that we're starting to do ahead now, that makes a big difference to businesses, and just having that bit more time coming out of Alfred Street makes a huge difference, and we're seeing a collective planning process for that. Just with the program, we were about 5 weeks behind. When we come out of Alfred Street, we'll probably only be 1 week behind. we've cut construction in Alfred Street by about 22% over the last probably 4 weeks. We're there slated there to be 14 weeks. We'll be there only 11. We'll see further reductions into Hailey Street as well when we move into that project as well. So with that, constructing on both sides of the street obviously lowers our cost, it improves our productivity, but ultimately it's less impact on the businesses. At the end of the day, if we're in the road, we're in their road. So the sooner we get in, the sooner we get out. And that's obviously going to cause us some savings, but also a little bit more impact as well. Just that there just shows the map of works. What I'll do is I'll just talk to this one as far as program goes. Obviously, we're up in Alfred Street there at the moment. Just shows how much things changed. This program actually changed slightly a day after due to a number of issues, and I'll go through that in a sec. Alfred Street, we're currently working on both sides of the street there. We have a full closure. We expect to be pretty well out of there by the first week in October at this stage, which is, ahead of schedule. We will come back and do the road in November when we do Hailey Street. So when we have both bits of gear here, we'll take the road out along with the Hailey Street one as well. Just scroll down a little bit there for us, Linnell. So we are moving up into Hailey Street. We were slated to go to the southern side of Hailey Street on Sunday and start demolishing. Due to supply issues, and particularly supply issues that we're having with COVID out of New South Wales, we had to wait for a specialist team. The water main on the southern side, when we talk about sub-infrastructure, the water main on the southern side is not a healthy water main, so we're unable to demolish over it. So because we had our planning in place, we're actually flipping to the northern side next Sunday, so that will change, and there'll be notice coming out this week. All the businesses are aware, and we're talking further with them today. Essentially what we'll be doing starting on Monday morning is we'll be coming from Rain and Horn back towards the traffic lights, which will basically demolish and start putting in the conduits through that side there. The following Sunday, we will flip to the southern side, which is you can see on the map there, and then there'll be an additional crew that'll be coming in as well. So there'll be 3 or 4 crews in Hailey Street, which will be a large capacity job. Essentially, from Glennon Street to the west will be open single lane only through the middle of the road, which will allow B doubles to 25 metres to enter into tyre power. So what that means is other B doubles can access via Avoca Street and come in. They can then exit out through the lights there as well. So got an education when was that, last Friday, James? We actually worked with Lisa at Tyre Power, and we practiced putting a 25 metre B double into her driveway, which was quite good. So there's paint marks on the road there, so we could work out our traffic management plan. But I think too that just, it's good to work with people rather than have a problem after we put the barriers up. We're able to work through that issue. So we've adjusted our traffic management plan for that. We've also worked with her on the design of her driveway out there. So we'll be doing a slight widening as well to make sure that, she's got plenty of room. So the businesses along there have been very, very good. And I would just give a shout out to our businesses in Alfred Street as well. They've been tremendous to work with, very supportive. And I think in general, everyone's happy with the works and the progress that's coming through there, particularly as we pick up a bit of speed. I think people appreciate when you do, make a bit of effort. I think that, to minimise their impact, and we've obviously seen that up in other projects as well. Just scroll down for us, Linnell. Keep going, we'll go down to the money. So project at the moment, still tracking fairly well on progress. What we are looking at there is Main Roads will be issuing an additional $180,000 to the project for additional works on Hailey Street. They want the pavement thickened up through there as well. What we've seen is that with the Eme2 that we looked at there before, previously we slated to use stabilised material to amend the subgrade. So if the subgrade failed, it's actually quicker for us to use Eme2 because Eme2 goes off same day, if that makes sense. So it lowers the thing. So it will be a slight amendment to the budget. Also, we've sold some of our material back that we had slated for that back to internal capital. So there'll be a budget amendment coming, but it's basically an in and out, if that makes sense. So we're currently doing a full review for those costs over the next 6 weeks. And then we'll have a fairly good forecast of where we think we will land prior to Christmas so that we understand where the project will be. At this stage, we expect that it will remain within inside its project value. And obviously with our efficiency pick up, that's the big one we're looking at. Like 22% reduction in speed is significant. And when we see that on Hailey Street, that will give us a very good direction of where we are pointed at the moment. So, which in credit to the team, and I'll just highlight that out for council. We always said that first section of Alfred Street would be a testing time, and you've got to put a water main through, then you've got conduits, then you've got stormwater. Now we're able to spread out and operate on both sides of the road. We will start to see probably true cost values come through on the project. So looking forward to that, if that makes sense. So also just on track, the water main in Hailey Street is already in. Those services are being run this week. So what we'll see again on efficiency in Hailey Street is that we're not waiting for water services to go in front. They will just be able to go straight through it. So which is what we want to see. Just scroll down for us, Linnell. There's obviously the profiler that came in. Just go down. See that one there? I took this photo probably about a week and a half ago. Again, we talk about the conduits and we talk about dark fibre and all those sort of things. I just put that photo in there to appreciate for council how many conduits are actually in the footpath there. Like there's 22. There's almost 50k of conduit through the CBD by the time we finish. It's a lot of work, and the thing is too, what was taking us a few days to put together, because we've worked out the pits and our timing and our speed, they're just rolling the stuff straight into the trench now. So, and it's all been put in by local contractors for this section here, which is really, really good. So we're seeing an upskill there. The other one I just wanted to mention too, and just give a thank you to our staff and our contractors locally, particularly our supervisors, and also O&F who worked through the long weekend recently to make sure that we were able to put that road in, and also to our management team that worked also and gave up their weekend to come down and supervise and do that work. Interesting thing is, we were talking the other day, last time I built a road was probably around 2014, before you move into other different things. When we laid the asphalt there, we actually had O&F come through, and I'm not sure if everyone saw it with their survey. So we actually don't use dumpy levels and all those sorts of things anymore. We walk through with we call it the jigger or a total station. Our local contractor across the road was able to provide those full services to Fulton Hogan and go through, survey, market. That profile that comes through is $1 million piece of machinery. What they actually do is they go through, O&F will go through plus minus 20, 30. They will walk behind it with a remote control, and they will lower the machine up and down over a space of 1 metre, which is, it's amazing how much technology's gone through. But I just wanted to shout out that we have that sort of capability in town, and it's great that we're using that. And it's also good for our graduates and those people that we had a large roll up for our asphalt works. I think most people came and had a look. To use that sort of technology in South Burnett, I think is a tremendous step forward to us, and I look forward to looking at us use that material, further into the future as we go forward. So, just scroll down for us, Linnell. Main one there, forward program. What we're looking at there is basically Alfred Street will be in there to probably early October. Essentially, we'll be going to Hailey Street, both sides of the road through September, October, November. We are slating to come and do the road up to where Rain and Horner, our vacant block, is probably last 2 weeks in November, where after that we're aiming for December to wind down construction in the CBD, which essentially we would do whole walls, gardening, and just maybe the odd bit of footpath depending on businesses' preference. But we're not looking to be a major disruption in December. I think that's important that we try to minimise what we do in the Christmas trade. Obviously, we'll talk with businesses too. They may have an appetite for us to complete the footpath in front of their shop, which is great to see. The other one I'll just mention, the council, we talk about innovation. A thing that we did up in Mergen, we introduced the ramps for the front shops when we did the pour. We actually had those same ramps retrofitted by our workshop last week as well, so they will be reused. They were lengthened and strengthened. We were able to pour Prices Plus's footpath last week with no disruption to their access. We poured it at 4 o'clock in the morning, put the ramp in, full customers were able to enter. They now have no step for their patrons or their storage getting out onto the footpath. They were very stoked, so it was good to see, and just good to see that we're able to reuse materials and work on methodology. So, it's very pleasing when we can be able to do those sort of things. Signs are out on the footpath. Main one to highlight there too is that we've had good consultation over the last couple of weeks. Big thank you to Councillor Shoemaker and Potter, who've been out with our KTP team out on the out in the streets, talking with businesses. Particularly, we're trying to give them more update on their construction program now. They all have a piece of paper in front of them which tells them what the next month looks like. And when that changes, we make sure we go straight to their door. So Hailey Street today, businesses will have a full piece of paper and a map showing them the works. Luke and Christy will talk them through the road traffic conditions, so that they're understanding of what the next month or 6 weeks looks like for them as well. And I think that's been a big thing coming out of everything. People want to know more about construction. At the end of the day, we're building what we're building. I think it's now trying to make sure we work with people and mitigate our impacts so we don't hurt their business as much as possible. So the KTP team were in the shopping centre, also been at the library, out and about doing with the shared zone. We'll have a look at that feedback. We'll probably be looking to bring back a report in to the October General. We'll be out at AIM at this stage. We'll put that feedback together and just make sure we do a full review so that we've got meaningful stuff there. My understanding is that most of the feedback was very, very positive. I wasn't at the workshops, but just what I've heard from the team. And we've had good support and also good uptake from different diversity within the community. So we've had community groups, we've had older people, young people, and everyone has feedback to give and something to offer, which was really good. So with that, the main thing that we have is around pedestrian movements, trying to make sure we keep an open site. The new mats that we've introduced on the southern side down in Alfred Street have been a hit with the businesses, the white ones. They look a bit tidier, they're easy to keep clean. We can blow them off and sweep them down very, very quickly. And the main one there is particularly around, obviously, construction sequence and timeframes, which we're starting to give all businesses a hard copy every week. They can see what's going on. If the plan changes, we can explain that through. And particularly dealing with businesses, talking about their access. And they're probably our main concern for Hailey Street has been tyre power. But again, they've been very, very good to deal with. And it was great of them to actually do a practical solution on Friday and get a B-double in there and try it out. So with that, Mr Mayor, that's me.
Very much, General Manager Meehan. So we have the report presented for information. Do we have a mover? Councillor Schumacher, thanks. Second, Councillor Froeloff. Councillors, questions? Councillor Jones.
Yes, Mr Mayor. As we all know, I'm a huge fan of the KTP, but I have an issue, and I've spoken to General Manager Meehan about the vegetation and the planting of silky oak trees through the CBD. I'm yet to see a clean and tidy silky oak, whether it's watered or not, and I have serious concerns, and it's been brought to my attention on a number of occasions, and I know that we're about to plant another big silky oak in the centre of the roundabout down here outside of 4SB. I would really like to be convinced before I would see that go in that this is going to be a no-risk planting of silky oaks where there's no sap, no branches and all that sort of stuff. And I know, I'm sorry to bring this up, but it was just a perfect opportunity, and we've had a number of conversations outside of the chamber and all that, but I do have concerns about a clean and tidy silky oak tree through the centre of the town.
Yeah, through Mr Mayor, I'll just say some people love the Grevillea robusta. It's an interesting tree. We've had this raised, a number of councils obviously have raised this with the silky oak. So what I'll do is I'll circulate a fact sheet that we had the landscape architect put together. So the big thing, there's a couple of things about the landscape with that. So the deciduous trees, so there's a number of deciduous trees within the CBD. The silky oak is actually not a deciduous tree, which again, I don't think for 1 minute I profess to know anything about landscaping and trees, so I'll just pick up what I've learned. What they do is, my understanding is that they will drop a bit of sap when they're newer, which some trees will do. A lot of that's caused by birds. The trees that we have with the silky oaks, because they are irrigated and they're different to the ones in your paddock, which are not subject to drought tolerance, so that when they drop a lot of limbs, and we've heard this from also from the working groups that looked at the trees as well. I know one individual had an opinion and another one had a different opinion. So what they do is that apparently they don't drop as much stuff because they don't go into distress, and they will grow quite strongly as an irrigated tree if they're maintained properly and kept clean. Like anything, what we see is that to have a bit of colour, you need to have some sort of cleaning regime in behind that. So we expect that we will get some sap onto the tree when they're younger. We need to make sure we keep it clean for a month or two of the year. But essentially, what our landscape architects are saying is that they don't believe it will be performed the same way that it does in a paddock. They've also identified a number of councils, including Sunshine Coast and Gympie now, who are installing these trees as part of their streetscapes and as their legacy trees as well. We actually have found their plans that appear in their planning schemes. If they're maintained properly, they should perform well. So, what I'll do is I'll circulate the landscape architect's fact sheet on the silky oak. Again, I don't profess that it won't make a mess or it won't cause some cleaning regime. I fully expect that we will need to clean any tree at some point of the year, which is we'll probably tie our pressure cleaning to that and our sealer in that with as well. Note that none of the deciduous trees are in any of the eating areas, which is the opposite to what's there now. So they need to be maintained properly. They're signature trees that go on key points, which are not in public spaces, if that makes sense. So they will drop into the garden themselves. So happy to circulate that. We are also going to add our fact sheet to our website. But yeah, it's one of those ones. And what we did get told from one local landscape person who wasn't a fan of the silky oaks is that everyone has an opinion on the silky oaks. Some love them, some don't. We've heard some that say, yep, they'll look great. They're 40 metres tall, they're yellow, they're beautiful, they'll look great, provided that they're maintained and they're not left to distress and drop their limbs. So our understanding is that they won't drop limbs or they won't drop anywhere near as much limbs if they have a consistent water moisture content because they're not placed into distress. So, and that actually came from another local person who was quite interesting. So, all right, happy to bring, if you're happy, I'm happy to circulate that back. I might, Mr. Mayor, if we're happy also, I'm happy to mark that as a question on notice and put the attachment into next month's council report, if that was okay.
Yes, please, GM, if you could do that. It's a very good question. And GM, and just in terms of, in the meantime, if you would be so kind as to go for a drive up along Moore Street and turn right to Cowie Drive. I think that on that corner there are silky oaks. And every morning when I drive to work, I see all the leaf matter around our median strips there. And I'm wondering if they're coming from silky oaks. I could be wrong, but would you mind just checking on that? Because I'd hate to see that volume of leaf matter in our main street. But they may not be silky oaks, but perhaps that might be just a little bit of on-the-ground research. Yeah, thanks.
I think there would be a little bit there, Mr. Mayor. I think the important thing too, with our deciduous trees, we're going to have beautiful colour through the CBD at certain times of the year. We need to make sure we bring that street sweeper through and we blow down and we clean it for that period of time. I think that would make a huge difference to us as well. But I will go for a look and I will also have the street sweeper follow behind me. So
very good, thank you, GM. And of course, we may need to again look at some of the equipment that we're using with our CBDs moving forward, as I know we've discussed, to make sure that our staff can keep that up to a standard that we'd like to see it at, and also do that efficiently. Give them the tools to do the job well. Councillor Duff.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as Parks and Gardens portfolio holder, I am concerned about the silky oak that Councillor Jones has raised, and it's not the first time it has been raised. Just wondering, is it possible to not plant that and put it on hold and perhaps look at some other type of tree if it's concerning to the community, concerning to the councillors about the ongoing maintenance, rather than just putting it in there because it's in the design? Is it possible to relook at it?
yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I've actually got a meeting with Parks at 11 o'clock, so I'll broach the issue with them. I'm happy to hold on the tree and circulate I think it's we've ordered the tree for the roundabout, so I'll circulate the fact sheet from the landscape architects, and what we might do is I might just place that on the agenda within my report for the October meeting if council's happy with that, and if not, we'll stick them in another park. So I get that concern too. Like the councillor and I have spoken about it, and like I say, I take the advice of the landscape and the horticulturist that it will perform differently, given that it's got Class A water, constant moisture in it, as opposed to one that sits in the paddock where it goes through dry time. So that's what puts them into distress, and they look sappy and filthy and all that sort of stuff. So happy to take that in, and we might have a discussion back in October. I might also look to see if I can bring the landscape architect up possibly for a chat as well. So I think that might be a prominent thing to do. So I'll see. I can't guarantee that, but if not, I'll definitely come back and have a chat in October. and then we'll get some advice from our local parks team as well, just to make sure we're all in the same.
Thanks, GM. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the update. I absolutely look forward to some further discussions about the silky oak trees, because a number of residents have raised it. You are right. And I think it's important that we get the right messages out in our community and that we make informed decisions. So I look forward to that work. I just wanted to thank the team. It's been a massive effort these last 3 weeks, being out in the shopping centre, on the street and in the library and various other places, consulting with people about the Kingaroy Transformation Project. And whilst the opportunity is taken to mention a lot of things not related to the project, it has been wonderful to just have that finger on the pulse and to hear that feedback from the ground from people from all over the region. Certainly being in the shopping centre is a great location for council consultation. I've met people from one end of the South Burnett to the other, and now they have the facts about the project. We're very supportive of the project, so it's been fabulous. So I just wanted to thank the team. It's been a massive effort. They've done time outside of hours to make that happen, and I just think it goes to show just the commitment council has to being successful in this project, so thank you very much. We actually sat down yesterday with a group of parents of people who live with disabilities and a couple of support workers, and we run them through the Kingaroy Glendon Street shared zone. And I just wanted to share with council, you know, for me, I left that meeting just going, wow, there are so many things I take for granted. And my goodness, how much of a difference this project is going to make in the 40% of people who live in our community in their lives, the people who are living with disabilities here in the South Burnett. I really do believe after that conversation, this will set Kingaroy up to be a regional centre that supports that broader population, but also supports quality of life outcomes for people living with disabilities, certainly people living with struggles that I have no idea. I really have no idea how many just day-to-day challenges they face. So thank you to the team. I wanted to acknowledge the commitment to listening that I've seen over this last couple of weeks in the consultation that we've done. We've really tried hard to really understand. I know there's a nervousness about a project like this, and particularly for those business houses who are so heavily invested in our region. I keep reminding residents it's so important, more now than ever, please support your local small businesses. Please do what you can. Walk that extra block. Please park in the main street. Please be mindful of where you're parking, not to park in front of another business for a whole day. More than ever, our small businesses need us, and I know the impacts of COVID have been long and drawn out, and for many businesses, the logistics of getting materials and items in their stores is the challenge of that is bigger than ever. They absolutely need our support, and I just encourage everyone to go and support them. I just wanted to acknowledge, yes, the listening that's happening. It's been wonderful to actually learn about the intimate details of how businesses function in the CBD, their needs, and I think it really does set us up for the next projects that follow. I just wanted to, I did have a couple of questions for you, GM Meehan. A huge kudos on the improvements and the innovations that have seen construction times decreased as well. That's just fabulous, and I know there are so many learnings on the job, so well done. I just wanted to ask a couple of things in relation to the cleaning schedules and what we're currently doing to keep the CBD clean as we temporarily move through the CBD footprint. Wanting to understand what work might be happening behind the scenes with certainly GMO May's team. Parks and gardens, I have had some concerns raised with me around the watering of the plants in the CBD, and I wondered when that recycled water connection was coming through. When the surfacing was being done, because I understand we haven't mulched those gardens because we're waiting for that spray paved surfacing. So just wanted to understand when we can expect to see that surfacing done, because I'm mindful it's getting hotter, those plants are going to need more water, and by all means, they're beautiful. We want to see them thrive. So I wanted to understand, is the recycled water connection coming through? When can we expect that? And in the meantime, what is the routine or schedule for the Parks and Gardens crew to be watering the plantings in the street and the surfacing? Sorry, I hope I've got everything there.
No, you're right. Through you, Mr. Mayor. If I miss one, Councillor, you'll just pull me up. So just with the cleaning, so the regular cleaning will commence on there. I think Peter and Kevin have got a report coming back to the community standing group committee. So where we've seen completed footpaths, say down at Alfred Street, that will go through into the normal routine till such time as we go through surfacing. We are working with a local contractor who may be able to surface the works as opposed to going to someone from Brisbane to do the surfacing. I expect that we'll probably commence that in the new year at this stage. There's probably a couple of reasons for that is we may do the section near the shopping centre as a trial because it's obviously no businesses there. But I'm mindful too that coming into summer, given that the duration of the project is going to be, the better part of 12 months or 9 months to go, we're looking to trying to surface as close to the finish as we can so everything looks fresh at the same time. And then that puts it on a standard cleaning regime for the spray payable, covercrete and the sealer as well. We're going to there is a gentleman who used to do it locally, so we're going to work with him hopefully to see if he's got capacity, because we'd like to see that money obviously stay in the community if we can, provided we can afford it. In regards to the Class A will be hooked up probably in the new year at this stage. Once we complete, we've still got the water main and recycle to put through into Kingaroy Street, which will be done probably in January at this stage. What we will be doing, and part of our discussions with the team this week, is we've had some discussions around the plants and the maintenance and whatnot. That irrigation system has arrived. It will be installed by council water and sewage staff in September. And after which time we will liven up the Class A main with potable water as a temporary solution, so that way we'll take the pressure off the Parks and Gardens staff. As soon as the irrigation goes in, it can be barked, which will make it look tidier and also make it, coming into summer, if we can get that done by the end of September, we'd be very, very happy that that's up and running. So we are meeting the team at 11 to try and coordinate that work, which will tidy a lot of those issues up. Obviously, we've been progressively planning along the CBD. We want to get in there as quickly as we can. So with that, what we'll be able to do is liven up that main and irrigation system stage by stage as we commence through the work. So we're hoping that Alfred Street, where we've been previously, majority of that will be livened up by the end of September and able to have its landscaping completed through there. So have I missed anything?
No, that's perfect. Thank you. They were the main things that people had approached me about, so it's great to have that knowledge. And congratulations. Keep up the great work, and thank you for the report.
Right, thank you, Councillor. Thanks, GM. Let's move on. Probably just in wrapping up, if I could make 3 observations. One, the consultation with the businesses in terms of the forward works and notifying them of the timing. And the nature of the works to be conducted has certainly gone to another level. So congratulations. I've been talking to many businesses in town who are feeling much more comfortable these days with the volume and accuracy of information they're receiving. So well done to the consultation team. The workers on the ground are ripping in. Clearly, I've been watching them as I drive around, and they're not certainly leaving any fuel in the tank. So the men and women on those job sites, both contractors and staff, I've noticed, have been certainly putting in a great effort. The profiler, GM, the third point on page 31, is that the machine there you call the profiler? Right. My dad shares with me that he was the first road construction person in the South Burnett to ever use a profiler, James Darcy, in the Mergenshire Council days. The first time a profiler came into South Burnett was when he was building a road in Mergenshire some years ago. So he's been very excited to see the profiler back on the ground. No, he didn't get time. Mum wouldn't let him out of the house. So, but I'm sure he'd be very impressed with the new technology on the road sealing. Very different to what they used back in the day. So yeah, congratulations, well done, and thanks for the wonderful report. Okay, so if there's nothing further, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thanks very much, Project Manager Meehan. Rightio, so we're now up to item 6.3, which is the request to rename Quiet Glen Road at Boonduma to Sila Lane, Boonduma. That's at page 34. Manager Searle, would you mind giving us an introductory report on that? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So we do have a very brief report on Quiet Glen Road, name change to Sila Lane. The actual report recommending the outcome of the request is intended to go to the October Standing Committee. So this is really just a brief history of where we're at with it. So it doesn't make a recommendation, it provides a brief history, and you'll see in the attachment we have the letter that we've sent to the property owners along Quiet Glen Road seeking their feedback. And the idea is once we have that this month, we'll then finalise the Standing Committee report for October and ultimately make a recommendation for Council's consideration for the name change.
Thank you very much, Manager. So we have the recommendation that the committee notes this report regarding the history of Quiet Glen Road, Boonduma, and that the request to rename the road to Sila Lane is considered at the October Standing Committee meeting. Do we have a mover? Councillor Jones, thank you. Second to Councillor Froloff. Further questions, comments, councillors, in relation to the matter? Councillor Shoemaker.
My only question, Mr Mayor, was, thank you for the report. The history is quite remarkable, really. I just wanted to understand how many actual landholders in that area would be impacted by a road name change? How many letters did we send out?
From memory, I believe it was 4 or 5. Essentially, it was the properties that directly abut the Quiet Glen Road. To date, we've had 1 response back, which has been great. We'll hopefully get some more.
Thank you. I think it'd be wonderful to actually finalise this once and for all. So well done. I really appreciate the approach that's been taken to contact the landholders in the area.
Thanks, Manager Searle. Council, let's go to the vote on this one. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 6.4 is the Cumbia CBD Streetscape Community Consultation. That's at page 39. And I know that Manager Darcy has been working on this for some time and invested a lot of time into coming up with the plans as we see them today. So, James, we'll hand over to you to give us a presentation on the proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. This item, the Cumbia CBD Streetscape, has, as you quite correctly advised, is a project that's been underway for probably a number of years, in all honesty. The history of it has gone across a couple of council terms, and there's been some really good input from the broader Cumbia community around what they'd like to see out there and what opportunities that can be presented. As we all know, the Cumbia is the southwestern gateway into the South Burnett and is a beautiful little town that provides a lot of opportunity, and a project like this can really complement an entry into the South Burnett. This project we'd like to take out for consultation. I think we've done as much as we can in the infrastructure space around getting some of the more important outcomes that are required in this project. It is a main road as well. It is the spine of Cumbia. Bell Street is the Bunya Highway. And we're looking at a number of items around footpath enhancements, some landscaping, and a possible location of a refuge crossing up near the Cumbia Hotel, interconnecting both sides of the street. The beauty of Cumbia is that it does have nice wide streets, but that also presents a challenge in relation to pedestrians that do want to cross the highway. It's about 22 metres between curbs, which is fairly consistent with a lot of regional towns with nice big broad footprints. And as such, we'd like to try and assist those who may want to cross the street depending on which way they are travelling. So what you would see on the plans is starting at the southern end of Cumbia is that the scope of the project is really from around where the school is all the way through to around where the Brooks Street intersection is at the northern end. And as we work our way through the plans, we're looking at some very subtle works on the shoulders of the road where we do have some similar outcomes as to what was drafted for Henry Street and Anango many years ago, where we do have those little island footprints that are out proud of the curb. We've got some landscaping that protrudes through the middle of it, but then looking at some some coloured infill around the base of that. But we also want to make that proud of the bitumen, just to assist with the movement of parking for vehicles that are going either way, such that they can acknowledge that they don't need to park or move all the way up to those landscaped islands, and wanting them to manoeuvre back through the through lanes or along the highway as they move through town. So at the southern end, we're looking at just to extend on that, we are looking at treatments that are going to complement what's already there as well. Last year Council did a footpath along the southern end between Roberts and Francis Street on the eastern side of Bell Street. And that work was all to complement the broader plan of what this is all about. We are looking to really enhance that further with some complementary parking adjacent to the Uniting Church, the hall out there and the CWA. We are looking for some opportunities of where we can site PWD bays, PWD being people with disability bays, and just wanting to really complement the opportunities that those particular groups provide Cumbia. So as we are moving north, we're looking at retaining the school crossing, but yeah, just looking at those little island treatments continuously all the way up to the Francis Street intersection. We've had some preliminary engagement with Main Roads on this to date, just to gauge their feedback such that we don't get too far advanced and then have to retract on the work that we've done. They gave us some overarching advice on what they'd like to see out there, particularly around the intersection. So we've started to, and it was really valuable to us as well at the same time. So we've started to gear it towards some of the outcomes that they'd like to see, but it's around still meeting the design intent and working with our designers in achieving this. On attachment 1 on page 43 is the crossing just north of the Francis Street intersection, which is also on the corner with the Cumbia Hotel, is the crossing that I was alluding to. We're looking to do similar treatments of what we've done in both Nanango and in Kingaroy, where we do build out through the shoulders of the road with concrete islands, trying to landscape them subtly. But on the western side, we're also looking at an opportunity for a bit of a wider and broader island to accommodate a small shelter as well, and just offering something fairly subtle of what the community is seeking out there. So what you would see is out there is another rendered image on a future page that gives a better idea of when you're looking down the street that we want to provide a small landscape shelter and opportunity there on the shoulder. We're trying to retain some of the street furniture as well that does exist, and also there's a notice board that does exist out there as well that liaising with Councillor Henshin, that there's been strong support in wanting to retain that as well. So looking to try and site that to support the area and how that's used. The interest around the school bus zone operations as well, and where do we actually site that as well adjacent to where that shelter is. It's around just trying to assist us in understanding what are the routine movements that happen in Cumbia on a day-to-day basis, and how do we site those to help continue those movements and operations, but where can we support some of the outcomes that Cumbia is really seeking. So the plans are there, councillors, for your perusal. Our interest is in wanting to go out for consultation towards the end of the month and into October, and then coming back and bringing back to council a future report on the outcomes of that, and being able to proceed with finalising the design for future funding opportunities with council. So if there's any questions, council, I'm open to answering them.
Thanks very much, Manager Darcy. The recommendation is that the committee notes the design material and commencement of public consultation on the Cumbia CBD streetscape with the Cumbia community. Do we have a mover? Councillor Shoemaker, seconder Councillor Froloff, thank you. Questions for Manager in relation to the design plans or the consultation process? Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I just want to back up what James has said. We've been out, I was lucky enough to be a part of some of the consultation out there, and the designs that you see in front of you there today to have a look at, that's pretty much what the community was speaking about. And go back to what Councillor Shoemaker was saying about commending the people and how we listen, or we're starting to listening to what the comments and all that sort of stuff are. That's a very good result. So I just want to say well done to James and his staff for coming up, and that to me, what I see there is pretty much exactly what the community was spoken about. So I'm really keen to see us go out to community consultation and move forward with this project. So well done.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you. I agree. I think the preliminary plans look great. I like the colour scheme and the use of green infrastructure. I think that green infrastructure is so important to the way in which our community feels. It's an important aspect of livability and lifestyle, and certainly in terms of our overall well-being. I just know through the King Roy project, we've really focused on aspects of art and culture, aspects of identifying, or recognising our strong connection to Waka Waka country and our traditional owners and their history. And we've also really thought about the role of the Bunya Mountains and their significance, and the role every town plays in terms of its unique identity and its role in really making the South Burnett what it is. I just wanted to understand, and perhaps it's something, further to the consultation, but I'd love to see some artistic elements considered in the designs. I know this is very much based around the infrastructure, which I think is sound. We've got wonderful footpaths and I think the shade structure and street furniture where people can meet and greet and gather is really important. But I'd love to see, and I hope it probably comes out of your consultation, but I think we will be recognising Cumbia in the King Roy Transformation Project. It's stone fruit and the elements that have been acknowledged on the Cumbia signage. And I guess I'm mindful that we may not be able to afford it in this particular round of the project funding that we've put aside. But I think in terms of that vision and that overall what the people of Cumbia would love to see, we know how important arts and culture is in our region and how talented so many people are. And I'd just love to see any feedback specific around, what are the things that make Cumbia what it is, and what are the specific things around the identity of Cumbia that people would like to see acknowledged in the infrastructure we build. So I'm mindful that might be a longer term view. I think Councillor Potter's got some extensive knowledge and understanding of the role of arts in our community. I think it aligns with our arts and culture strategy, and I'd just like to see some sort of consideration for those aspects beyond the infrastructure, the actual arts and cultural aspects of the Cumbia streetscape. What kind of things, what opportunities exist, and what are potentially some of those future projects we could consider. So I know we've learned a lot through the King Roy Transformation Project, and I'd just like to see some consideration for that here in the Cumbia project.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Manager Darcy, I imagine you'll take that on board, and no doubt there'll be a lot of feedback comes back from the Cumbia community in relation to those elements of historical and perhaps contemporary art that reflects what the community sees as being valuable and to promoting their communities. Thank you, Councillor. Okay, so just a couple of things. Thanks, Major Darcy. Just in wrapping up, certainly Cumbia is the southwest gateway to the South Burnett. This council has shown a commitment to developing all of the entry points into our region at the southern, northern, western and southern boundaries of our region. And of course, Cumbia is very much one of those important entry points. It's also, of course, the gateway to the Bunya Mountains, and important that we continue to progress the promotion of Cumbia as such. So on that basis, I think this is excellent. Would really like to see, Manager Darcy, that we do embrace a very comprehensive consultation process with our community. I know there's been a lot of work done to date, and there's a lot of support for what we've presented so far. But community meetings, getting the information out through the community, if we can take a very proactive and certainly as we've done with the KTP, over the course of the next 4 to 6 weeks, make sure that consultation is very, very comprehensive. I know the community are very much looking forward to it, so thank you, and would appreciate that. Okay, so we'll go to the vote then on this. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Councillors, before we move on to the next item, I would like, in relation to Cumbia, to put forward a couple of motions for consideration of the committee. First of all, in relation to this particular project, the Cumbia CBD streetscape, I'd like to put forward a motion, Mr. CEO, that off the floor, that the committee recommend to council that the Cumbia CBD streetscape project be identified as a priority project within the 22-23 Capital Works program for completion prior to Christmas 2022. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Jones, thank you. I'll now speak to the motion. Thank you, Manager, for pointing out that this project's gone across successive councils. The Cumbia people, I think, have been extremely patient in waiting for us to do something out there. They haven't been terribly vocal. They've been patiently waiting for us, and I'd like to think that we can give a commitment to them to have this done before Christmas 2022. This gives them something they can actually hang their hat on and say, we've finally got a commitment from a council that's going to do this by a set time frame. I did have a conversation with Manager Jed this morning and GM me, and just around, our Capital Works program. It would be lovely to bring it forward and do it this financial year, and that's what I would have liked to have seen. But the reality is, unfortunately, with getting contractors and getting materials at short notice is really, really challenging right now. So please correct me, General Manager Jed, but the view is, I think, with our staff at the moment, that Christmas 22 is a more realistic time frame that we can give to the community, and that would be achievable based on what we know is happening with contractors at the moment. But James, Jed, look, if you wanted to sort of clarify that, please feel free to do so if you feel that's not achievable. But if it is, I'd like to think as a council we can get this going and get it done before Christmas next year.
Yeah, certainly. Mr. Mayor, I think with what we know, and given that there's a strategy associated with wanting to deliver this, and the timeline associated with that is 15 months, that gives us a reasonable time frame to try and deliver this over. It gives us the ability to put in some key milestones and also the associated reporting to assist council with not only the community feedback, but then being able to conclude through design and estimate for budget considerations for 22-23. We should be in a better position to assist in delivering by that timeline.
Thanks very much, Manager. Councillors, I open the floor to speakers for or against. Councillor Jones.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I've obviously seconded this, and I agree with it, but I'll also say that that was always our plan, I believe, that when we went out to community consultation, that was the target that we were shooting for. We were aware that we probably wouldn't achieve it in this financial year, but we were certainly, as the financial year rolled over, we were planning on having it up to date, ready to go, and completion by Christmas 2022. So I'm fully supportive of this, and you're right, Mr. Mayor. It started last term, and discussions were there. Councillor Hyde brought it up, and we've moved on. And at that time, we were unable to be in a position to do anything, but we're certainly in a position to do this, and Cumbia certainly deserves it. And as well as it, we're working across, as you've rightly highlighted that we're trying to improve all the, not just the entry points, but all the villages and the livability that keeps getting thrown around, all that sort of stuff. I think it's a great thing, and I think it's an achievable goal to have it completed by Christmas 2022. So fully support it.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Councillor Schumacher.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, fully agree, fully supportive of this motion, and particularly that the staff are confirmed that they can deliver on it. I would love nothing more than to see our council all join the Cumbia community around the Christmas tree for their Christmas celebrations in Christmas next year, 2022. I really think this project is so important. It's such a beautiful little community, and really they're heavy hitters in terms of our agricultural industry and the outputs from the Cumbia community. So I just think this project is so important. I think every project that really lifts the spirits of our community is important, and I just, look forward to standing with this council and the community around the Christmas tree in Christmas 2022.
Thank you, Councillor. Other councillors wish to speak before we go to the vote? No? Okay, I'll just wrap up with what I replied by saying, thank you for the speakers and supporting the motion. I think the Cumbia people will be extremely grateful for the support of council on this project. Okay, so let's go to the vote. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. Council, with the leave of the committee, I'd like to put forward another motion, and that one is that we'll just wait for Linnell to get that up. Thanks, Linnell. So this motion to the committee is that a report be brought back to a future standing committee meeting, and I'll probably get some guidance on timing around that because I want to give our staff some time to do that, in relation to future capital works on the establishment of camping ground facilities, including dump point, and the renewal, at Cumbia, and the renewal of the Apex Park, I believe. Is it Apex Park at Cumbia? Of the Apex Park at Cumbia. General managers, in terms of time frame for bringing that report back, because obviously I'd like to see proper due diligence done on this in terms of around the costings, around the feasibility of doing such. I know we're going to be having discussions in coming weeks around the next 3 years Works for Queensland and the 2022 calendar LRCI program. Would it be too much to ask to have that to the October Standing Committee meeting, at least even just an initial report? GMMA, GM Brennan?
I'll take this one. Through you, Mr. Mayor. I think depending on the level of concept, like we could certainly probably have a bit of a concept coming back, but is it? I suppose just not sure. The establishment of a camping ground, is this a new camping ground facilities? Have we got land identified?
I believe the land is the current council parklands that are located behind the main street near the tennis courts at Cumbia.
So it is just refurbishing the current.
Refurbishing, yeah. It's really just putting in a dump point, I think, and having perhaps a picnic shelter and a dump point, something of that nature, and an entryway where caravans can come in and park, maybe a little bit of signage direct them into that camping ground. So probably just a preliminary concept with some preliminary estimates of costing, I suppose, at this stage. Perhaps could we reword that to say a preliminary report? So it's not a comprehensive report, but just a preliminary report at this stage? Yeah, but certainly open to advice as to how much time you'd need there, General Manager.
Yeah, no. So if it's just looking at, I suppose I thought you were talking about a whole new camping area somewhere, so we're going to be planning approvals and all sorts of things. So I was a bit nervous on that time frame. But if it is just looking with the current site and an upgrade and that, then we can certainly look at some preliminary costings on that.
Thanks, Jim. So if we could perhaps put
October.
to the September,
I know, so-
October,
Yeah.
sorry, I'm a month behind, to the October Standing Committee meeting. And of course, if there's reasons for delay, I guess you can bring that back to us and we can push it back if necessary. General Manager Brennan, yeah.
Mayor, if I could add, I noted your reference to an obvious desire for a motorhome or caravan dump point. I know that we don't have a sewerage scheme there, so we'll have to take that on notice. I do not have any experience with the provision of those services without sewage, because you cannot do them on-site facilities because of the chemicals that are used in that equipment. I don't know whether Peter has broader knowledge than mine, but I've not successfully done it unless there was a sewage scheme before. So we might have to just take that one on notice, because it's a bit of a technical problem, I think, that particular one.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. If that could be obviously brought, if those issues could be raised for the benefit of council in that report, that'd be much appreciated. Thank you. So look, I might just go for a seconder on this one so we can continue discussions. Councillor Jones has seconded. Thank you. So let's go back to the floor for discussions. Councillor Jones, anything further on that?
Thanks,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Mayor. These conversations have been had out in the Cumbria community, and just in regards to the comments that GM Brennan has just made there, Maidenwell is the same facility where it's no sewage system or anything out there, and you have to continually get them pumped out. So it is a cost to council. So it's an ongoing cost. There is plenty of opportunity for community groups to apply for grants, and I thought that was a conversation that we may have had with the community of Cumbria, that they may be able to apply for a grant on that particular issue. The facilities that we're talking about down around to create a motorhome park, in the conversations we've had and talking to a lot of people out in that Cumbria area, the toilets around the tennis court and all that sort of stuff are certainly not up to standard to meet any increase in traffic or anything like that. They're flat out doing the job they are now for the tennis club. So you would nearly have to, in regards to the facilities there, so this will be a comprehensive report, and I know that it's a month, but it'll take a bit of certainly putting together, because there's a fair bit in that motion. I'm happy to support it, but just understanding the October Standing Committee with the facilities, the dump point and all that sort of stuff out there in the Apex Park, that was also discussed as well. That and I was one that said to the community out there in one of the consultations was it makes sense to try and upgrade the park when we're doing the upgrade to the street, so it all sort of flows in. So whether or not the Apex Park at Cumbria or whatever can be done in the next following budget or whatever, there's a lot in that, what you're asking. So just that's a bit of my history with the conversations I've had out there, that and the access down to the parks and the signage and all that sort of stuff, that's possibly something that we can achieve pretty reasonably easy. But knowing that the toilets and all that sort of stuff, the facilities at the tennis court where we're proposing, I think that's where they're proposing to put that. And certainly on board, I made myself quite clear that I supported trying to get people down there, but the cost of facilities to go there would be quite substantial with the toilet block and all that sort of stuff that's needed. So there is I dare say that there would be a lot of work in putting that report together to get a full understanding of what's out there. So all I was querying was around about the October timeframe, and you highlighted that if there's issues, maybe we can extend it. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. GMMA, just in response to Councillor Jones' comments, anything further from you on that? Thank you.
Yeah, so this is, that probably helped clarify. So this isn't the current 24-hour stop that you're looking at. This is putting one down on the sports ground.
Yes, that's correct.
Yeah. So I suppose, so there will probably be apologies, Mr. Mayor. I thought we were sort of doing just a refresh of the current stop over in the main street, which is the Apex Park one. But yeah, there will be, if we're putting a new toilet block, we're going to have to be looking at the disposal will be an on-site disposal system, the capacity of that, have to look at equivalent people and look at whether there's EPA approvals required for a facility such as that. I'm not sure what the reserve tenure is there. We could do some preliminary investigation, but if it is that, October is going to be cutting it fine. We will still have a lot of questions, I imagine, at that October meeting. We might be able to bring something preliminary, but there'll still be a lot of unanswered questions. And Councillor Jones is exactly right. With the dump points in those unsewered areas, it's an ongoing operational cost. So we are sending a truck out every 3 weeks or something to empty those and bring them out. So that's why, it does add an operational cost. And I suppose we'd have to look at the cleaning costs and the ongoing operational costs of that. So those are the sort of things we may not have ready, but whether for October we could put a list together of the items that we need to address and bring that back preliminary.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. And it may be that report identifies the issues that require further investigation, and then we can go away and do further work in relation to some of those more complex matters. But simply a preliminary report identifying the issues, and at this stage, I'd be comfortable with that. Thank you. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I think it's certainly, I'm mindful, new kid on the block, so certainly not aware of the conversations in the previous council, but I can say I have read the Sport and Rec plan, and that for Cumbia, Apex Park was identified as a park where the redesign of the layout needed to occur to separate vehicle movements, caravans and motorhomes from pedestrians, particularly those accessing the toilets from the playground. And I know I have spoken with some mothers out there of young people who play in the park, and that is a concern. And I have gone and inspected the park myself, and I can see from the number of caravans and things that are staying in that area, it would be great to have some consideration as to how we may separate those activities so that children can play safely in the park and meet the current standards. I am just probably with that report keen to understand the current camping options in Cumbia. I was of the understanding that there were camping options at the showgrounds as well. And in my previous employment had been doing some work to understand what the Camp Draft community was doing with those facilities, and certainly the local stone fruit growers and things that might rely on them during the picking season. So I'd just like to understand what actual camping facilities are available at the moment, and whether this is the right approach, or whether we should be considering bolstering what we currently have. But fully support. I think I visit the Bundy Mountains regularly, drive past that park all the time. It's dark, it does not have a nice feel about it, and I know there are a lot of young families who support the kindergarten and school, and I think it'd be important timing to start looking at that infrastructure on the back of this project. So fully supportive of a report coming back, and I understand that might take us some time to work through the challenges, but thank you for bringing it forward.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. General Manager Eme, if we could please just note the issues raised by councillors today around the cost of the toilet facilities being upgraded, the ongoing operational costs of pumping out any proposed dump point, and also, as Councillor Shoemaker said, what other camping facilities are available, perhaps over at the showgrounds. Let's identify that and be aware of that as we further discussions. Thank you. Yeah, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to flag also that the CMCA do subsidise the dump points, and I don't know whether, even with we've just put a new one in Proston, whether that we actually grab that opportunity to actually get some funding from the CMCA, because they will subsidise those dump points. So I just wanted to flag that. And very keen to support the project, because the more we can make these small communities like Cumbia livable, that's our goal, that's our corporate plan dream. So just really keen to support the project and upgrade, particularly Apex Park. And we've shifted our 48-hour stock over in Proston. They had it first of all in one spot, now they're looking to put it in a different spot. But I think the main thing about it is to bring the businesses bring those caravans to your community to support the businesses. So if we get it right, it's going to make a huge difference to not only the livability, but also the number of people that will come and support the town of Cumbia. So really keen to support the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. Just in response to Councillor Duff's comments there in regards to CMCA funding, they do, and all you have to do once you install or get permission to install a dump point, you just then apply to CMCA, and I think it's around about the $2,500. What they do is give you the actual cap or the top that sits on top of your pit, and the dump point and all that sort of, your access point to your thing. So there is an opportunity there, and they're pretty much, and as soon as you do that, they give you permission to then apply and become a CMCA designated campsite and all that sort of stuff, and it gets put in there on all their media outlets and all that sort of stuff. So there is an opportunity there, and they definitely will do it. I don't know of anywhere in Queensland so far that they've ever knocked back putting the top on the facility.
Thank you, councillor. Okay, I might just close up some remarks on this and then we can go to the vote. And Councillor Freloff, did you have anything you want to add before we do that? You're comfortable? Good. No one else?
No, just wanted to say I'm totally supportive of it also. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Freloff. Okay, so yeah, look, I think everyone's articulated well the reasons for us investing in the development of Cumbia as our southwestern gateway and as our one of our major gateways into the Bunyas, and it would be nice to see that similar infrastructure to what we've got in Maidenwell, as Councillor Jones has indicated, for the camping grounds, etc. Councillor Shoemaker's point has certainly been conveyed to me, I know it in the community clearly as well, that the separation of the playground area for the local families away from the camping grounds for the travellers is something that the community is really keen to see happen, and then so that we can develop Apex Park into more of a community-based asset that the local residents can use. And Cumbia people are very keen to grow their community, not just as a retiree centre, but as a place where young families can live and have the benefits of the wonderful school and kindergarten that they've got out there. So I would certainly commend the motion to the committee on that basis. That being the case, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you, committee. Okay, we'll now move on then. We'll keep progressing. We're getting through this quite well. 6.5, application for a permanent road closure at a section of an unnamed road and a section of Steinhart's Road, Keysland. It's at page 48. GM, Manager Searle, are you across this one? Can you give us an introduction to the committee introduction to such? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. So we do have a road closure request, and we've been asked to make comment back to the Department of Natural Resources and to the applicant. So it may be best to have a look at one of the attachments, attachment 1. Next one up, please. One more. So that's the road reserve that's been requested for permanent closure and amalgamation with lot 321 on FY61. It's just off the Wandai-Proston Road. It's currently a closed road, so there's no assets, constructed road, etc. on that. So in terms of the impact on council, there's currently no impact, certainly short term. We do have a recommendation to council, and it is that we do not support the closure and amalgamation into the lot, and it's primarily based on the long-term potential and the long-term potential detriment that it may have to councils in 30, 40, 50 years perhaps. They may be dealing with a particular issue and perhaps a road extension or development or what have you. But again, certainly in the short term, there's no impact that we're currently aware of. So that the recommendation is that council object to it. Long-term usage of the sections, the road reserve is unknown, and the closure may affect any future interconnection of roads, any necessary future infrastructure, and any potential new development in the area.
Thank you, Manager. We'll just get this one up on the floor. So the recommendation is as presented there, with those two elements to it. Councillors could have a look at that recommendation. And I'll now seek a mover for such. Councillor Jones, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Freloff, thank you. Okay, let's go to the floor. Questions, comments, councillors, in relation to the recommendation? Councillor Duff.
Through Mr Mayor, I'm just wondering, is it possible to have a temporary road closure? So the applicant can use the land in the interim, in case in 30 or 40 years' time that there's an opportunity to utilise the road. Is it possible to meet the applicant halfway with a temporary road closure?
Okay, if I could go first, even before a temporary road closure, and I don't know if this has been discussed or not, but quite often my history with it is councils tend not to, our recommendation would always be not to close unless there's a very good reason, but you'd hold no objection to a permit to occupy, so they can utilise the site, because even a temporary road closure, then it becomes custom and practice, and I've had it closed for the last 5 years, and so what's the fuss? And that leads you to, anyway, that's just through past experience. But certainly if they're utilising if there's no infrastructure on it, talk to the department about no objection to a permit to occupy, and then it can be, circumstances would dictate what happens. Anyway, if that's of help.
Mr. CEO, just in relation to that, if we look at element 2 to the motion, where there's delegation to yourself to finalise any and all matters associated with the application, is that something you could do under delegation? Consider a permit?
Oh, if the department, if there was an application and we're requested to it, yeah, we would certainly consider any objection or non-objection to a permit to occupy.
Yeah, so that being the case, there wouldn't need to be anything added to this motion. That could be something you could consider through your office. Okay, thank you. You comfortable with that response, Councillor Duff, in terms of a possibility of a permit to occupy as an option for the landholder?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, so what is being suggested is that we support this motion and then we delegate, as part of that, then the CEO then looks to negotiate a permit to occupy. Is that what's being suggested?
Sorry, I wasn't suggesting that we, well, when I say proactively go down that way, but quite often I'm just recounting some of my experiences that where a road wasn't closed, the applicant will often, for example, come back for a permit to occupy. They can utilise the site and put cattle on it or fold it in while there, but the road corridor remains open and it remains gazetted. So then if you do need it back at some point, the permit to occupy can be lifted and the road still exists. As said Kevin, I'll throw to you, but I just, through practical experience over many years, that sometimes allows a path forward for the applicant.
Thank you very much, Mr. CEO. Major Sol, did you want to add anything to the CEO's comments?
Totally support the CEO. It may not be palatable for the applicant, but that's a decision for them. They may be seeking for the amalgamation into that lot, but again, that's entirely up to them.
And should council resolve this at the ordinary meeting at the end of September, the motion as it's presented here, is that something that could be articulated in the correspondence to the applicant to say, well, even though council is objecting to the application as such, that there is the option to apply to the CEO for a permit?
I
use.
believe so. At the end of the day, we are only providing comment to the Department of Natural Resources. It's ultimately their decision. They may not agree with our decision again, but we are seeking. They are seeking comment from us. But
sorry. Yeah, thanks for clarifying. We'd be reporting a response to the department then as such, not to the applicant. Okay. Yeah. Thank you, Manager. Councillor Jones, you had your lodge. I'll go to Councillor Jones now. Councillor Duff. Yeah, if we could.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I fully support the recommendation here because the applicant there, we've got a number of landowners that join that actual particular road reserve that possible. I don't know if anyone of those other landowners have been contacted to see if they're agreeable or maybe or whatever. And I think just looking at it, I think it was around about 100 hectares that property is, and that about 10 hectares makes up 10% of the existing property. So yes, he's got to purchase and all that, but there is other landowners around there. So knowing that we're only responding to DNR and the ultimate decision is with DNR, I'm happy to support the recommendation that's put forward here today.
Thank you, Councillor. We'll come back to you. Any other councillors before we come back? Councillor Schumacher?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand the process, and certainly, on face value, I can understand the landholder's intent. I probably would like to see in the recommendation to council something about the permit to occupy as an option, just because I am supportive of that approach. Whilst we may not close the road because that might be, impact future generations, I can see what the landholder's trying to achieve, and certainly if cattle are grazing in the area and helping to keep it down, clean, and certainly habitat like that is perfect for wild dogs and those sorts of things. So I can understand his intent, and I just would like to see in the recommendation that council's supportive of progressing some sort of permit to occupy. I'm mindful that's up to the mover and the seconder, but I would like to see something in there that's council's intent. Whilst we object to this, if there can be feedback to the department that we'd be open to options around a permit to occupy, I would like to see that in our correspondence.
Thank you, councillor. We'll go back to you now, councillor Duff. You had your light on, and then we'll come back to councillor Jones in terms of that particular matter. Councillor Duff.
I'm very keen to support what Councillor Shoemaker has suggested, because we don't know the people involved here, but a lot of times they are farmers that are actually looking after the land on behalf of the department and the council, grazing it, keeping it burnt, keeping it free of weeds. So I'm reluctant to support this recommendation as it stands, because I'm quite sure that if we say we don't support it, that the department won't support it. So it's more or less a no once we say that. So I'm just really keen to not take the tough line, because I think probably the landholder's trying to do the right thing by us, and to certainly put a dot point, an amendment, actually like to move an amendment that we add that the CEO, we delegate to the CEO to negotiate with the
So, councillor, could I just perhaps could I interject there, and as the chair perhaps provide an option? I'm just listening to what councillors to the mind of council here, of councillors. Would it, and just consideration by the CEO and by councillor Jones as the mover, we've got item A1 there that explains the reason for the objection. Would it be something we consider to insert an A2, point 2, that says that the second element to the reason for the objection is that the option is available to the landholder to apply to council for a permit to occupy. So that while we're objecting to the actual permanent roads closure as such, we are making the department clear that there's an open mind in council to consider a permit to occupy, and that information is sent through to the department so that they can then convey that in their response to the applicant. So I'll just read again that the option is available to the applicant to apply for a permit to occupy through the office of the Chief Executive Officer of the South Bennett Regional Council. Oh, you've got to go. Oh, that goes to the department, Mark. So that's not under your delegation?
I forget to push a button sometimes. We would be asked for our feedback, but I would think that application would go straight to the department. Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Siafcalo. So that being the case, I'm happy to leave it as is. That the option is available to the applicant to apply for a permit to occupy. Just want to, before I go to Councillor Jones, Councillor Duff and Councillor Shoemaker, just in terms of your comments, are you comfortable with that as a proposal to go to Councillor Jones as the mover? Councillor Duff?
I'm just wondering, is it possible for us to put that we would be supportive of?
I think the CEO has indicated that that application would go directly to the department.
then it would probably come back to us again to know.
Not necessarily, but councillor, if and again, with recounting previous experience, the option to the permit to occupy is actually a good outcome for all parties, because if someone's looking after the corridor on paper exists. So if there's an option into the future, you've got the thing there. But in the short term, it's no different to a sublease on a rail trail or a whole raft of things. There's a permit to occupy. The landowner can utilise it, and I'm happy to say in front of you all now, it would be very rare that there are occasions, but in this sort of circumstance, that you would object to a permit to occupy. It's a good form of tenure for those sites.
And so the response to the department would be a matter for the CEO under delegation, councillor, to consider. And as the CEO has indicated, unless there were good reasons for objecting to such, there normally wouldn't be an objection unless there were good reasons for doing so. Are you comfortable with that then? So Councillor Jones,
Yes.
sorry? Yep, thank
yes,
you.
Mr. Mayor.
Sorry, thank you. So Councillor Jones, we'll put the matter to you. Thumbs up from Councillor Jones always means you're good to go. Okay, so we've got a thumbs up from Councillor Jones. So we now have that motion as presented, moved by Councillor Jones. Councillor Frodoff, are you happy as the seconder with that change? Thank you. So in terms of our process, now, any further speakers for or against before we go to the vote? We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you very much, Manager and General Manager, for presenting that comprehensive report. We'll now move on to 6.6, which is the 25-26 Regional Roads and Transport Group, commonly known as the RRTG funding nominations. They're at page 52. Manager Darcy, would you be so kind to give us an introduction? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Waibay Burnett Regional Roads and Transport Group have advised us to start preparing funding applications for consideration and prioritisation under the 2025-26 TIDS funding for programming of potential works on our local roads of regional significance network. Those roads are typically council's higher functioning roads that perform more of a collector, what I mean by that, a bit of a broader trunk profile of work through our region, and they are also connecting into main roads as lower classification in their network as well. So it's around how council's network dovetails in with main roads, and what we do is look at where our roads are performing, where are they starting to get to their end of useful life, and some of the opportunities of where projects can work in with other projects. We've looked at our local roads of regional significance network, which is in an acronym is LARS for us. So for our LARS network, we have Tingura-Chelmsford Road and Blackbuck Crow's Nest Road. Tingura-Chelmsford Road is well known to a number of us, which extends on the western side of Tingura up to Wandai-Proston Road and performs as a bit of a rat run out to Proston and Boonduma Dam for those that are coming from the Bunya Highway or the southern end of the Bunya Highway. So we are also acknowledging the condition of that road, particularly at the northern end, is starting to really fail, particularly on the outer wheel paths. And there are some photos as attachments in this report to support our observations. And really, we want to start programming for that as soon as possible. The second nomination that we're looking to put forward is around Blackbuck Crow's Nest Road and wanting to widen out the profile of the road that connects in with the Toowoomba Regional Council boundary, as well as acknowledging the fact that Toowoomba Regional Council are in the process of doing exactly the same profile of works coming up to the South Burnett boundary. So they have their own LARS project that they are undertaking this year and next year that will tie in to where this project would finish. So we are trying to get a consistent profile of road that extends all the way from Blackbutt through to the Toowoomba boundary, where it then just looks seamless. The local government boundary is administrative, and for the user, we don't really want them to really understand what is South Burnett's nor what is Toowoomba's. They really just want a level of service at the end of the day. And so we are looking to put forward a project that complements that rather than probably highlights the fact that they go from a 2-lane seal road in Toowoomba coming back to a single-lane profile of road. And also the traffic out in that particular part of the world is certainly going gangbusters with the agricultural and forestry interests on the southern side of Blackbutt. So continuous operational expense associated with keeping the shoulders up at that part of the world. And yeah, we've highlighted that as an opportunity for council, given the fact that we've had some really good discussions with Toowoomba Regional Council in the last 6 months around what their intent is heading into 2022.
Manager, if I could just interject, I'm going to just step in here. I just conferred with the CEO. In reading the report now more comprehensively, I have accounting clients who are on Mount Binga Road, which I think is the section of road you're talking about here, who have avocado farms. As such, I believe I have a conflict of interest. And I would like to declare that I disclose to the meeting now what I should have disclosed earlier, and that is I believe I have a declarable conflict of interest in relation to the matter being considered at item 6.6, and that it's appropriate that I leave the room and stay away until this matter is resolved by the committee. So as such now, I'd like to voluntarily leave the room. I don't want to make any comment or have any influence over this matter whatsoever. So I'd now like to invite Councillor Jones to chair the meeting until such is resolved. Yeah, thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Okay, so the Mayor has departed, and we'll just finish off with Manager Darcy's wrap-up, and then we'll open the floor.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I didn't really have too much further to add, in all honesty, but just really wanted to give a summarised background on each of the potential nominations for council, and just acknowledging the fact that there are opportunities and deficiencies as well with the current condition of both these roads. And the fact is that this TIDS program does plan quite well. This is for 4 years' time, and this is also what you see work its way through over the years, where council has successfully delivered a number of projects under the RRTG and in TIDS specifically, in getting some really good outcomes on both the council and the state network. The council has also delivered on behalf of the state to achieve a whole of network outcome. So just really wanted to conclude with that and provide opportunity for councillor input.
Yeah, so we'll go straight into a move. Someone would like to move that. Councillor Froloff, second. Councillor Duff. That the officer's recommendation that the committee notes for information the nominations of Tingura Chelmsford Road and Blackbutt Crow's Nest Road for the 25-26 TIDS funding as part of Council's Future Capital Works program. So I'll now hand it over to the floor. Councillor Shoemaker, comments?
Yes, thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. I just would like to understand more around what are council's local roads of regional significance. So if we have a register just before this comes to a council meeting, I'd just like to actually understand how many of those roads we have, and certainly what roads have been funding with TIDS funding already, because I imagine we have quite a few. And I'm fully supportive. I certainly understand the economic outputs that are generated in both areas and how important that road infrastructure is, certainly from a regional development point of view. And your words around, James, around the department actually advising us that these roads are potentially of significance or sit in a good position for TIDS funding in the 25-26 years, certainly I understand if we've given that sort of advice or support from the department, then we should follow through. However, I just would like to understand from a regional development point of view, how many roads are actually on that register, and certainly in that, take that longer term view as we're looking to advocate for various roads moving forward. I've never seen it, so I'd like to be better across that, please.
So, Councillor, if not just, but if we note it for, we can bring, there's a list of Lars roads, history of TIDS funding, so if we just knock that one up as its own separate report, I've just marked it as a future report, would that be okay?
Yes, if happy to move a motion if you need it, but I would like to have that information before I make this decision. I'm fully supportive. I fully understand the operations in both those areas and the process. By all means, I don't want this to be a political cherry picking of what roads I would like and what roads you would like, Councillor Jones. But certainly, or any other councillor in this chamber, sorry, for that matter. I mean that with utmost respect. But, you know, I really do want to understand what are those roads. It's been identified in our regional development strategy that our road infrastructure is important to the growth and prosperity of our region. And, before I make this decision, I would appreciate that report.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. General Manager Brennan or Manager Darcy, response?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, thank you for the insight, Councillor. We are on the clock with this. In all honesty, we do need to have our submissions provided back to the administrators of this program in early to mid-October. As such, we're interested in wanting to gauge the support or the other interests, the alternatives possibly around this. So we may be able to provide this as attachments in the General Council report, subject to probably working with yourself or the council in the background leading up to submitting that General Council meeting report. I'm open to options here through yourselves and the CEO on how we may be able to achieve that.
My apologies for the misunderstanding, but that's exactly what I meant. I'd like to see that list of roads of the Lars list prior to the actual Council General meeting when we endorse this recommendation. So, definitely fully aware you're on the clock. I just want that information before I make this decision.
Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. Just go to Councillor Duff, just in case there's another opportunity to respond. Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Jones. Yes, I'm just keen to support these two projects. We're talking 3 or 4 years down the track. I've already, with that Tingura Chelmsford Road, on that northern end, someone's actually spray painted pink across there. Please fix the road. Yes, so I'm concerned about having to wait that long, but it definitely needs some major work on it. And also, it's very supportive of the other project because I think that as Toowoomba Regional Council are doing their part, it would be a great opportunity and also outcome if we could do that piece as well. So it's very, very supportive of both projects. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Duff. Any more comment, Jed?
Deputy Mayor Jones, I'm quite conscious that we have not, during the term of this council, gone through the regional road group and the local road of regional significance network. So, but touching on it very briefly, the regional road group oversees a coordinated program of capital improvement and maintenance of the lower order of the TMR road network and what's deemed the higher order of our network. Now, those significant roads can be identified by council and nominated to the RRG because of their significance to industry, to tourism, to connectivity between communities as examples. So we do have maps that identify those. They have been identified in the past and are relatively stable because of their definition and purpose. So it's not something, it is something that could change, but not something that regularly changes. So we do have a network of those roads which have been nominated by this council and agreed by the RRG. and they form together the local roads of regional significance. So you'd see them forming a framework with possibly major, I suppose, generators of traffic, but generally connectivity. So that's why we're seeing them. They do also exist on the TMR network, and it's that network joins together that gives us a longer term, usually a 3-year fixed, 5-year indicative program of works ahead. That's why we're talking so far out. So it's quite good. It aligns with our statements of intent, which have been nominated and agreed by the RRG. And then as we progressively apply these funds, these TIDS funds, we do so in a network focus in collaboration with the decisions at the RRG. So that's sort of as brief a background as I could give you. I'd suggest that perhaps we could attach to, if you do make a recommendation in relation to this, we could attach to the report going through that background information that shows you that network and gives you some of that background. If you require further information, we're happy to give it to you directly, Councillor, or more broadly to all of Council if we need to update that regional road group process and our forward planning.
Thanks, General. So all we're doing here today is recommending to the General. So if that information is circulated prior to that and we endorse or we recommend to Council that the committee, where are we? Yeah, that the committee notes for information the nominations of Tingira Chelmsford Road and Blackbutt Crow's Nest Road for the 25-26 TIDS funding as part of Council's Future Capital Works program. So if we vote on that, we're recommending to the general meeting with the opportunity to get that extra information. So you're happy with that, Councillor Shoemaker, moving forward?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, so any more comments before we go to the vote on this one? So the recommendation in front of us that we're voting on, that the committee recommends to Council that the committee notes for information the nominations of Tingira Chelmsford Road and Blackbutt Crow's Nest Road for the 25-26 TIDS funding as part of Council's Future Capital Works program. All those in favour? Unanimous, thank you. Yep. Can we bring the Mayor back in, James, please?
Just to advise the meeting, we're just waiting for Councillor Shoemaker to return. I think the next item's Sherberg Road's an important matter, so I'd like to have Councillor Shoemaker here, particularly as we're down a couple of councillors today. And then we'll go through this, we'll deal with this matter and then suggest that I'll move an adjournment that we break for morning tea and then come back and deal with the remaining matters for the remainder of the course of the morning. Okay, thanks, Councillor Schumacher. Councillor Schumacher's now returned to the meeting. Just before we move on to 6.7, I'd just like to apologise to the committee and to the staff in the chamber for not disclosing my conflict of interest in relation to the previous matter at item 4, as I appropriately should have done so. So my sincere apologies. There is in relation to that. Okay, I'll work hard to do better next time. Council Committee 6.7 is the Sherburgh Road planned works at 56. And General Manager Searle, would you be so kind to give us an introduction? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This report has been quite rushed. It is a work in progress. But there have been some recent discussions with Sherburgh Aboriginal Council about the work that Council has currently budgeted for this financial year, and also the proposed grant submission through the ATSI TIDS for rehabilitation of sections of Sherburgh Road. The ATSI TIDS is a 100% funded and the submission closes later on in the year, December to January, I believe. And so the recommendation there is that we continue with the work that we're proposing to do on Sherburgh Road for this financial year, which is essentially some pavement reseal preparation and the bitumen reseal. But also to support the joint ATSI TIDS application for upgrading Sherburgh Road to a 7-metre seal. There is a consideration, and as I say, it's a work in progress. There is consideration with the work that we're proposing to do, which is bitumen resealing. We do need to make sure that it is complementary to what the funding proposal is wanting to do. There's not an intent to do our work and have it all undone with any approved ATSI TIDS work that may follow. There is also a consideration that if we are successful with the funding, then when is that work able to be undertaken? And that's on the basis that it's preferable not to wait too long without doing anything to Sherburgh Road, on the basis that it is in need of a reseal. So there are some considerations, and as I say, it is a work in progress. There is some more, in my view, some discussions with Sherburgh Aboriginal Council just to nut out exactly what that funding application is going to look like, and to make sure it is complementary to what works we've got proposed.
Yeah, thank you, Manager. Just before we go to get a mover on the recommendation on this, I think in accordance with our process as a standing committee, would like to, perhaps for the benefit of the committee, Manager gets just clarification on that. If we commit to proceeding with reseal works on this road, and then the TIDS application is successful, just your point raised there, are we then going to be potentially ripping up all of that reseal that we've spent money on? Could you just perhaps clarify that for the for the committee? Thank you.
Certainly. And that's hence the concern about ensuring that whatever works we are currently funded for this financial year is complementary to the TIDS application. If the TIDS application is to rip up the existing road, then it doesn't make any sense to reseal prior to that work. But so it's understanding exactly what the TIDS application is going to look like, as well as the timing of that potential funding.
Thanks very much, Manager. Okay, then Councillor Duffy, you've got your light on, so over to you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to change the recommendation by putting forward the following motion. That council provide a commitment to Cherbourg Council.
Just get you to go slow there. We've just got to give. Oh, you have. Are you happy if we have? We'll just get Lynelle to put that up on screen for fellow councillors, and then we'll get you to then read your motion prior to seeking a seconder. Thank you.
That South Burnett Regional Council provide a commitment to Cherbourg Council that we will maintain the potholes and any road defects on Cherbourg Road until such time as the proposed ATSI-TIDS application has been assessed. And then number 2 remains the same.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have a seconder? Is Councillor Shoemaker? Thank you. So that brings it up for the opportunity to debate now, committee. And so, Councillor Duff, opportunity to speak to your motion. Thank you.
So I believe that we should leave the $180,000 in council's reserves to put towards a full upgrade of the road rather than doing a reseal now and then having to rip it all up potentially in the 6 months' time if we get the funding. I've had discussions with Acting General Manager Jed indicating that Cherbourg Council, I know that they were keen to see a reseal, but I believe that he's now working with the council towards a joint application. It would be very disappointing to the community and to council if we spend the money now and then do a half-baked job rather than trying for the extra funds and doing a proper job. The road has needed an upgrade for a very, very long time. We would only have to wait potentially 6 months to see if we get approval, and if successful, it will be a great long-term solution. So, and I also think if we work together with Cherbourg Council and put in a really good application, we'll stand a great chance of success. So really keen to support this change. And I have also spoken with Acting Manager Jed and also General Manager Meehan about this earlier this morning. Thank you.
Okay, so I really would like to hear from, certainly all the councillors to have opportunity to speak to this. It's an important matter being a capital works budget allocation. General Manager Brennan, can you, and Manager, just in the rest of that, can you give comment, please, to council, to the committee in relation to that proposal, your thoughts, please, if you could share that with us. Thank you.
I don't have an issue with that proposal. It's probably more so understanding what the timing is on the any potential grant approval. If we're talking about this in 12 months' time, the preference would be to undertake a reseal sooner than later. My only other comment would be just a slight change in that wording. It'd be preferable not to maintain potholes, but just perhaps that we will repair the potholes and any road defects, just a minor one.
Can we change that? Yeah, yes, repair the potholes. Sorry, Councillor Duffy, we don't want to actually go out and create more potholes. Thank you. Sorry. Thanks, Manager. Well, it's a good pickup. Do we have any information, Mr. CEO, as to how long these TIDS applications take for the benefit of the committee?
Sorry, Mayor. Only bar what was spoken about with the joint meeting the other day, as far as it's a program, we'll share, as offered when we met with Sherberg, we'll offer all data available and support them. There probably will need to be, just, it doesn't need to be part of, but as soon as this is done today, pretty quick conversations. I might give Zala, the CEO, a call unless you've already spoken to them, because I have, without having it in front of me, vague recollection that they've put out social media since our meeting the other day that we'll have the reseal done before Christmas. So yeah, so there will need to be a conversation had with the council quite quickly after this, I would suspect today, and before the October meeting.
Thank you, Mr. CEO. I had received, had conversations for the benefit of the committee with Mayor Sando and CEO Zala that I would be looking to bring forward to council for consideration. I think I raised this with the General Manager previously in correspondence, whether or not council would be able to bring the work forward and have it completed prior to Christmas, the resealing work. But that, to my mind, was a matter to still be considered by council, because, as Councillor Jones has raised, there are technical issues around that in terms of the temperature to get the seal to take. So I had shared that with Mayor Sando and CEO Zala when they were here last Wednesday. And also I had over lunch spoken with them about whether they would be prepared to consider that we just maintain the status quo for a period of time, and we maintain the road as best we possibly can with any significant defects until such time as the TIDS assessment was completed. So they seemed of a mind that they were open to considering that, Mr. CEO, as an option. Having said that, I mean, this is our council's road, so at the end of the day, it's a matter for this council to determine. But certainly there had been no commitment given that we would complete the resealing prior to Christmas. I had simply indicated to them that I would put the matter to council for council consideration. And hence my proposal to put up a notice of motion in relation to such. So go back to the, Council. I'll go to Councillor Shoemaker now, and then we'll come back. Thanks, managers. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did just have a couple of questions in relation to this one. I do remember the conversations last week in the chamber. My first question was, it was my understanding we were going back to Sean Nicholson with some info and data about the current condition of the road to inform the TIDS application. So I'd just like to understand from the staff's point of view, with that current data, is there an immediate safety issue if this is if this work doesn't occur by November, is my first question. My second question is, has the team had further discussions post our discussion with Sherbrooke Aboriginal Council last week in relation to a coordinated approach, because we had floated that idea? So they're my two questions in the first instance, please, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. In regards to to Sean, it is a work in progress. So I it's on my list of things to do to discuss with Sean. In terms of the defect collections, we're currently assessing Sherbrooke Road now, and that's in expectation of the reseal preparation that we'll be doing, had planned to do in the next few months. The advice that we've got right now is the ATSI TIDS assessment will be done in the latter half of this financial year. So in terms of the work, the rehab work, if we're successful, it's likely to be, this is our current estimate, is probably in another 12 months. So there will be a delay there. And I would, my personal view would be that I would be concerned about Sherbrooke Road. It is 800 to 900 vehicles a day. We do have current complaints about potholes, etc. If on that basis, I would be recommending that we continue with that reseal prep. and the final seal prior to Christmas.
Supplementary question, Mr. Mayor, through you. Just in terms of just trying to understand, when was the last time council actually did do work of this nature to the Sherbrooke Road? Like, when was the last sort of significant maintenance done on Sherbrooke Road? Anybody have any? I'm sorry to put you on the spot.
I would have to take that on notice. Certainly, we've done no significant maintenance since I've been here, which is 3 years now.
Yeah, it's certainly a challenging one, Mr. Mayor, because I can see enormous value in the opportunities for a coordinated approach, particularly with that ATSI funding and making sure we do a proper job and we don't go back. I know last week I'm also very supportive of advocating for that bridge improvement and working with Mayor Sando and the team, and certainly putting forward a strong case for that bridge to be improved. My concern is, I have confirmed on Sherbrooke Aboriginal Council's webpage, as have southburnett.com, that there has been clearly from that discussion we had last week an understanding that we've made a commitment for November. I would hate to go back and I understand they were preliminary discussions, so this, the chamber does make the commitment, but I'm very mindful of our relationship, and possibly with this recommendation, Councillor Duff, I'm wondering if there's an opportunity before the general meeting, can we confirm or have a conversation, can we make it part of this recommendation that council actually engages in further discussions with Sherbrooke Aboriginal Council about a coordinated approach, noting that there could be a 12-month delay, and with that in mind, I'm thinking, is that the best approach? 800 to 900 vehicles a day is significant. It is the main connecting road to Sherbrooke, and I am wondering if we would be in a much, I am concerned that if we left that for another 12 months, the issues that could be created because of that. So I'm comfortable with this recommendation, Councillor Duff, but I would like to see that confirmation with Sherbrooke Aboriginal Council that they're supportive of us taking this approach and prolonging those works. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, thank you, councillor. And I'm just wondering, councillor, with that point 3 we've got now that Lionel's presented there, you indicate you'd like to have that done before council decides this at the ordinary meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, so if we could perhaps add there, Lionel, prior to the September ordinary meeting of council. Yeah, are you comfortable with that, Councillor Shoemaker?
Yes.
Your intention? Yeah,
Yes,
thank you.
That's the intent. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillors, we'll come to Councillor Jones, Councillor Duff shortly. I'd just like to hear from Mr. CEO as to his thoughts on this. Thank you, Mr. CEO.
Oh, thanks, Mayor. And similar is whatever happens, and actually we're all exactly on the same page. Whatever the reseal project, future capital upgrades, it's a coordinated approach between the two councils working well together. And I had it in my head in any which case, whichever version of the resolution was passed today, we'll need to engage very closely with Sherbrooke as to how the data, it'll be a really good joint project, but yeah, there needs to be that clear line of communication so that everyone is under the same understanding expectation going forward.
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Thank you, Mr. CEO. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Mayor. I've heard all the comments. I understand Acting General Manager Brennan's comments around the $180,000 downlay and all that. And yes, we haven't endorsed or committed to the road of Sherbrooke, but I'm sure, me personally, believe that this council has certainly indicated to Sherbrooke, as acknowledged, that we would have this done before Christmas. 800 or 900 cars a day. The road is in terrible condition. Kev has just mentioned that in his term here in 3 years, in my time here in council in 5.5 years, there's never been any reseal work done or anything on that road. So I think, and CEO Zala's comments the other day with ATSI, now, if anyone would know, I reckon that CEO would have a fair indication on how long these grant applications will take. Now, he indicated to us the other day, and I'm happy to be corrected, but he said that grant would not probably come through until February 23. That's how long he's thinking that would come through. So to me, this is a priority. And I have been working behind the scenes quite hard with General Manager Meehan and James Darcy and Kev and all that sort of stuff to try and get this road escalated to the #1 reseal program on the reseal program because of our commitment and understanding the necessary needs of Cherbourg. It's the only road in, it's the only road out. It is in terrible condition, and I'm not happy to repair the potholes and any road defects until who knows when. So I won't be supporting this on those points, and I will certainly, and I know this is only a recommendation to take it to the general meeting. Now, if this, I will argue strongly against this in the general meeting if it goes to that point on those grounds. I think that we need to make this commitment, $180,000 on a reseal on that road, understanding that it's an unknown on the grants. Yes, I totally understand. 180,000, I get all the points. You know, why put the seal down and we rip it up in 12 months? The indications I've got from the Cherbourg Council, Aboriginal Council, is that it will take until at least the end of 22, early 23. So on that grounds, I won't be supporting this recommendation. I'm sorry.
I'd just like to add to what Councillor Jones said there. Now, my understanding of these works is if they don't get, so if that's the case and they don't get notification about their grant until February 23, we're moving into a cooler period, Manager Searle. Now, these works that they're applying for will involve resealing and the spraying of bitumen that will require a certain level of temperature to have it take or set. It could be the case that we then couldn't perhaps undertake the work until summer of 23. Technically, would that be correct for the benefit of the committee? Councillor Jones, could you clarify?
I just want to clarify, that's when approximately the works would start, is what he indicated in February 23, is when by the time the grants and all that sort of stuff have been looked at and given permission and the money comes through and the process and all that sort of stuff, works would start in February 23 was the impression that CEO Zala gave me the other day when he made that comment sitting just there.
Sorry, Councillor Jones, I'll retract my question because you've now clarified it. Yeah, so works would then potentially happen February 23. Thank you, that clarifies it. Thank you. Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, given what's been said, like I don't think that we have enough information. I'd like to be able to go back and find out how long these, like talk to the department and see how long these applications are likely to take, find out if further discussions with Cherbourg about their expectation, because now there's been some suggestion that we can't even do the reseal before Christmas because of the weather. So I'd like to put this on hold until the council meeting and have some discussions rather than vote on it today, if that's possible. Could I move a procedural motion that be put on, that we leave the matter on the table until we collect this further information and bring it to the council meeting, to the general meeting?
Well, procedural motion has been put forward, Councillor Duff. I'd like probably to debate this a bit more, to be honest, before we go there, but under our standing orders, I'll have to allow the procedural motion to proceed. Do we have a seconder for such? Not at this stage. Sorry. So that being the case, we can always perhaps consider another motion as part of this, but it's an important conversation we get right. So thank you, Councillor Duff. Apologies. I guess, yeah, I've got to go to Councillor Shoemaker shortly. Yeah, okay, let's further discussion on this. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, Mr Mayor. I've certainly listened to the views in the chamber and appreciate the work Councillor Jones has done as portfolio holder for roads over this 5.5 years with his council, this council. It's my view on those grounds and on the basis of the conversation we had with Cherbourg Aboriginal Council last week and certainly the current condition of the road and how important it is that we do make that one road in and out safe. For that reason, I'm not going to actually support the current recommendation. I support the officer's recommendation that we proceed with the reseal work. So that's my position on this. I do think 2023 is too long. It's way too long. And, you know, I'm hearing the frustration of the councillors in that area. I also recognise how important it is for the people of Cherbourg to have a safe road in and out. And I also recognise how traffic has changed with the success of the material recycling facility. So on those grounds, I'm not going to support this committee's recommendation. I support the officer's recommendation and would like to proceed with the reseal works.
Thank you, Councillor Schumacher. It's important that the committee has full information here, full, honest, open disclosure. Now, we did have a joint meeting with the Cherbourg Council last week, and pursuant to that, there is a post on Facebook at the Cherbourg Aboriginal Council Facebook page that CEO has shared with me, where the council indicated that they had a very productive meeting with our council last week, and we're going to continue to work together in partnership to benefit both, to foster development of both regions, and that as part of that discussion, that there has been a commitment from our council, as Councillor Jones said, to complete the works prior to Christmas, or in November. Actually, I think they stated in their post to complete the works in November. So that is now an expectation that has been created pursuant to our discussions last week. It has now been shared with the community through the Cherbourg Aboriginal Council's Facebook page. And I think that committee, we need to take that into consideration. So I was supportive of Councillor Duff on this, but now that I've seen that's the understanding that's been created with the Cherbourg Council, that's the commitment they've given to the community, I'm perhaps moving back now, Councillor Duff, to reconsider our position on this. While I would like to see that we keep that $180,000 up our sleeve, to maybe even, if council had an appetite to do so, to tip that in on top of whatever TIDS funding they get and do a really good job. But it doesn't seem as though we're in a position to do that at this point in time because of the uncertainty of these TIDS applications. And I know that I'm quietly confident that with our support we can get this across the line, but there is no guarantees. And they have had all sorts of issues, Cherbourg getting this approved previously with their TIDS funding. Now, I think it's going to be different this time because with our support and with advocacy to the department and the minister from our council in supporting them, I think that's going to lend more weight to the application. But even with that, there is no guarantee. Councillor Duff, right of reply.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm happy to withdraw the changes because I agree with you. I did not realise that that expectation was there, that there was posts up on Facebook. I thought we were still in negotiations about trying to do a joint project and that we could get it up in 6 months. I didn't know that after hearing Councillor Jones that it's going to take so long. I'm concerned about the quality of the road currently, the length of time that it would take, as has been suggested. I just wanted to get more information about the actual length of time that the application would take, but I'm happy to withdraw my changes and go back to the original motion if I don't know how you do that, if I could just withdraw that.
Mr. Mayor, from what I'm hearing, and happy to be jumped on, but everyone's on the same page. Everyone wants, absolutely everyone, none of us want to put down $180,000 worth of work and get it dug up in 2 months' time. None of us want to see the road not repaired. None of us want, everyone's actually saying the same thing. The report and Manager Searle's comment, so the report was pushed quickly through as far as a recommendation to follow up from the council meeting. It will go to the September ordinary. We have given a commitment that we're going to repair any potholes, road defects, and the guys have been down there. Is it just not as simple as, with the mover and second as consent, South Burnett Regional Council provide a commitment to Cherbourg Council, we will continue with the reseal, repair potholes, defects until such time the application is approved? Because we're going to make a joint application between them all. Just a nice, simple suggestion is that we will continue with the reseal and we'll continue to monitor and repair well, we don't have to monitor. Because the reseal is time sensitive and certainly take the manager's point that it needs to be done needs to be done. whatever happens, continue with the reseal program, repair the potholes. Right? Yeah. Does that make sense, Councillor Jones, as well? I mean, it's just.
I believe, Mr CEO, that's still, it says road until such time as the proposed the application has been assessed, so.
Okay, we'll drop that bit. You
What
don't
I'm-
need that.
Yeah,
So the second part is.
Mr CEO, is the fact that we commit to doing this reseal program before Christmas. That's what I want. That's what I would like to see in that. Yeah.
Thank you, Mr CEO, and thank you. You're often able to help us negotiate a good balance in relation to our resolutions. I'm just going to make a couple of observations here. So first of all, Councillor Duff has indicated that she's prepared to retract her motion, which would then take us back, with that retraction, Mr CEO, would take us back, mover and seconder. If mover and seconder retract, we go back to the original recommendation. I would also like to clarify that in fairness to the Cherbourg Aboriginal Council, we did certainly not indicate to them in our meeting last week that we wouldn't proceed with the reseal. In fact, when they spoke about the fact that they wanted us to proceed with the reseal, we certainly didn't give any indication at that point. While our general manager raised issues around the fact that, we're going to be spending money that we might have to then rip up, we certainly didn't indicate to them that we wouldn't be proceeding. So I think in all fairness to them, we've gone along with this to this point in time, and I don't think that they have necessarily, I just want to clarify, the Cherbourg Aboriginal Council have not in any way misrepresented any understanding that they had with us through those informal discussions. And I think to be fair to them, they have done the right thing. They've been fair and honest in what they've said publicly. Our informal meeting last week, we did have discussions about continuing to support them with the works on that road. And I think on that basis, to be fair, I would certainly prefer to go back to the original recommendation and would be asking Council Committee to consider having the works completed prior to Christmas if the weather allows us to do so. Manager Searle, yeah. So Councillor Duff, it's with you and Councillor Shoemaker as the mover and seconder.
Yeah, I'm happy to go back to the original one and even put in the wording that we commit to doing it prior to Christmas.
Thank you, Councillor Duff. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, Mr Mayor, fully supportive. I would, however, just like to see some acknowledgement that Council will continue to engage with Cherbourg Aboriginal Council around that coordinated approach for the TIDS application. I know we submit an application. It sounds like there's some work to be done with the actual data, and so yes, if that's the intent, I just think it's really important to our relationship, that continued open conversation, and yeah,
Just going to,
thank you.
So Councillor Shoemaker, Councillor Duff, Lionel's just going to insert item 3 there in light of Councillor Shoemaker's intent to resolve, to recommend to Council that we continue to engage. We might just take this prior to September ordinary meeting out now, because I think the context has changed in relation to a coordinated approach. I would also like to see that I've got some, that as the Mayor I've got some endorsement of Council or the committee, endorsement of Council to advocate with Mayor Sando collaboratively to the Minister and the Department on this. And I wondered if we could say Council engage with Cherbourg Aboriginal Council in relation to a coordinated approach and joint advocacy. Full stop. Yeah, thank you, Lionel. So we've got that there as presented. Councillor Shoemaker, are you happy to move that?
Yes, Mr Mayor, happy to move that.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Councillor Duff, are you happy to second that, or do you
Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to add in the reseal program prior to Christmas, rather
Prior
than
to
between
Christmas?
October and February.
Okay, so Councillor Shoemaker, back to you. Are you comfortable with that change?
Yes, Mr Mayor.
Okay, no, that's fine. We want.
At least that works begin.
Yes.
Mindful that with weather, we are approaching storm season, so as long as works have begun, that would be great.
Yes, thank you. So Councillor Shoemaker, you're happy for that as presented to move such. Councillor Duff, you're comfortable now as the seconder. Yeah, look, we've gone back and forward here a bit, but that's the beauty of these standing committee meetings. We thrash these things out, we get clarity, and then we can take it up to our ordinary meeting of council. Okay, further speakers before we go to the vote on this? I just have one thing to say. Manager Searle, as the person responsible for managing the works, we don't want to put you in a position that you can't deliver on. Should the weather, subject to the weather, let's be clear, subject to the weather, is that something that, based on the current works, is, to your knowledge, reasonably achievable on what you know at this point in time? The Christmas deadline.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. So just confirming in the attachment that we've sent to Cherbourg, we've said that typically we'll do our reseal program November to February, and we'll put Cherbourg at the start of the program. So our aim is November, and with reseal preparation work commencing in the months prior to that. So we'll work hard to achieve that. Yep.
Thank you, Manager Searle. And of course, council will, as we always do, fully accept that weather conditions, could change those timeframes. So it's important that, for the record, we make that we make that noted. Councillor Jones, anything from you before we go to the vote on this? No. Councillor Shoemaker, any reply? Final comments? No. Let's go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all, and thank you for the good conversation on the matter. Okay, committee. Do we want to keep going? 10-minute break. You want to have a cuppa? Okay, I'm now going to move that we adjourn for a morning tea break, and we resume at 11:45 a.m. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Jones, thank you. Those in favour? Show of hands. Carried unanimously. Thank you all. See you back at 11:45 a.m. I'll now move that we reopen the meeting at 11:52 a.m. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Jones, thank you. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. We're up to 7.1, which is the possible silage options for council's irrigation area. It's at page 58. General Manager Brennan, with your support of your staff, can you provide us with an overview of the report? Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mayor. I will ask the acting manager to address the technical components of that.
Thank you. So the irrigation area is the final step of the treatment process, and the question was whether or not the silage would be suitable for as an option. Unfortunately, the irrigation area is subject to public and environmental health obligations. So there is a significant public health risk posed by using different types of cropping techniques in irrigation areas. So it is regulated by the environmental regulation in the water classes for those particular areas. So I guess the recommendation is just to continue with the current pastures, and they're quite low risk to council and also low risk to the end user.
Thank you, Acting Manager. Councillors, so as a result of what the Acting Manager has explained, we have a recommendation then that we continue to utilise the irrigation area for pasture-type crops based on the risk issue identified. Do we have a mover for such? Councillor Freiloff, thank you. Second, Councillor Jones. Questions, comments, speakers for or against before we go to the vote? Okay, those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, General Manager, to you and your staff for the work undertaken in providing that report to council. Much appreciated. It confirms that we're on the right track with our current cropping program. Thank you. Okay, 8.1, Local Disaster Management Water and Wastewater Portfolio Report. Welcome to Councillor Freiloff to present such. Thank you, Councillor Freiloff.
Thank you, Mayor. First of all, Local Disaster Management Group update. The Bunya Mountains Community Disaster Management Subgroup are today carrying out their first quarterly meeting since the creation of the subplan. Community group members will also be participating in Queensland Disaster Management Arrangement training today, which is being facilitated by Queensland Fire and Emergency Services and disaster management officers from Western Downs and South Burnett. The South Burnett Local Disaster Management Group will be holding its quarterly meeting tomorrow on the 2nd of September. The following are the current works for water and wastewater as planned. Updated as of the 23rd of the 8th. Capital works for the 21-22 are as the KTP Hailey Street 200 millimetre diameter water main replacement should be completed by February 2022, and the SCADA and cyber security updates have now been completed. All other capital works, 21-22 CapEx works, are under planning. Water restrictions still remain on level 3 water level 3, at level 3, and the dam levels are as follows. Council continues to monitor the water storage throughout the region, which dam levels are Boonduma 25.4, BP 6.9, Gordon Brook 65, and Boo Bear 41%. Also available when you go on to the council website after this meeting, you'll see the water allocations for financial year from all the other places and the financial reactive works year to date. I'd like my my local disaster management water and wastewater portfolio to be accepted. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Have a seconder? Councillor Jones, thank you. Speakers? Councillor Jones?
Yeah, just a comment through you, Mr Mayor, to Councillor Fryloff. Could you just pass on a big thank you, seeing you're the chair of the local disaster and all that sort of stuff, to the staff on behalf of the Bunya Mountains Community Organisation up there. They are extremely excited and really appreciative of the work that has been carried out with council staff and yourself to get to where they are now, and they're a very progressive little group up there at the minute, and very positive, and that's part of the progress. So thank you very much to yourself and the local disaster management staff. Thank you.
Thank you. I will pass that on, Councillor Jones.
Thank you, councillors. Let's go to the vote on this one. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you, Councillor Fryloff. 8.2, Declared Water Supply and Sewerage Service Area Review 2021 at 67. General Manager and staff, over to you for presentation. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Mayor and councillors. So the précis of the report's fairly self-explanatory. Under the water supply safety and reliability legislation, it is we are given both, I suppose, responsibilities and obligations. Maps of our declared service areas require consideration annually. Those properties that fall within a declared service area are entitled to connection, so our review always assesses our ability to meet the necessary standards of service for those properties. To the contrary, properties that are external to those boundaries, we are not able to provide connection to within the current planning and approval of the council. This report provides the annual review of those declared service areas. It is quite detailed in describing the process through which the officers must consider those service areas in providing the declared service area boundaries. There are a series of maps attached to the report which identify the boundaries, and I will seek a further comment from Steve Carroll, but from my review there are only very minor, if any, changes to the preceding boundaries of those service areas from the last time it was considered by council.
That is correct. There have been a few, there's been no expansions to the zones. The biggest change, I suppose, is noted based on the last maps, is where we've classified some areas as future expansion. Those particular areas are set up in two ways. One, if they're inside the zone at present, we don't have any currently any council infrastructure servicing those lots. So there are a few areas which have been subdivided. They're inside the planning boundaries, but we don't have any water and sewerage infrastructure at the front of those properties. So if owners have decided to connect on them, council will be under an obligation to extend and allow them to connect. There are mechanisms under the Water Act that we can recover costs for certain items, but that's a caveat in some of the smaller zones there. Areas that are shown shaded outside the zones, not within the pink area, they're areas which have, I suppose, current development applications or approvals in process, and again, there's no infrastructure there. if they're large, big blocks, we can provide a connection as a single connection to them like any other property. However, in future, they will then have to go through all the modelling and development processes to provide the infrastructure if they further subdivide down the path. So that's probably the main area there, just to clear those up, because there are a number of areas, particularly inside the zones, where there are subdivisions and just no infrastructure currently serving those lots.
Thank you, GM and staff. We have the recommendation as presented at 8.2 committee. Do we have a mover for such? Councillor Farrell, thank you. A seconder. Thank you, Councillor Jones. Speakers, questions? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
My apologies in advance. I've read this report probably 3 times. There's a lot of information in here, so I did have some questions. My first question was just in relation to, so point 2 on the report. This is the last paragraph. Declared service area boundaries have been developed with consideration of the designed and installed infrastructure and their capacity to provide adequate levels of service to all connected properties. Lots inside approved development boundaries for which council has been designed and installed for developed lots and donated to council were included. Lots outside these development boundaries, even if across the road from the infrastructure, have been excluded, as the infrastructure was not designed to cater for external connections. So I just wanted to make sure I understand that clearly. So in other words, what I've read into that is that the properties that currently have connection that are in the boundaries, you know, have been recognised, but those properties that adjoin, even though the connection may be relatively close, they are not.
Yes, councillors, that's correct. So as an example, I suppose to clarify this up, if you look at the lots going up Harris Road, you have all the rural residential blocks on the left-hand side in Kingaroy Heights area. They've all been, the infrastructure's been designed to cater for them. If you look at the, I suppose, the more rural end on the southern side of Harris Road, most of those, apart from the residential areas, obviously in the initial part, those larger rural blocks have been excluded because the infrastructure hasn't been designed to cater for them. So that's the example we're talking about there.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. There's also, just on the following page, page 69, if the infrastructure after modelling showed deficiencies in the levels of service under ultimate conditions, that is, all unconnected blocks within the declared service area were connected, the blocks near the end of the infrastructure were excluded from the zone. So I just wanted to make sure I fully understood that. So is that very similar to what you've just said in the previous discussion, or is that different? If the infrastructure actually ends at the end of the property?
Yeah, that's coming more, I suppose, to a case, and I'll use the 30-metre rule because that used to be the general rule back in the previous legislation, but doesn't actually currently exist in the current legislation, more like a rule of thumb. So if you have water infrastructure running to a certain property, and if there's another couple of properties further down, we've excluded them out unless there's infrastructure that can support them. So say if you go for an end of the street, the infrastructure goes halfway down, it's been designed or installed for them. Unless the infrastructure support additional ones after that down the end of that street, we've excluded them if they can't. So,
thank you for the opportunity to ask questions. And the last point, I just wanted to understand. So, point 5 on page 70 talks about historically approved connections, considering private infrastructure, meter locations, and their impact on other connections or customers. Just in the last paragraph, it says several areas with historical connections also have private infrastructure installed that can travel many kilometres past the point of connection to council's infrastructure. Council shouldn't provide additional connections to these private service lines to avoid disputes over ownership and maintenance. Can you just explain that a little bit further for me?
Yes, again, councillor. So probably as an example, there are a couple of historical connections that exceed past the Wondai Airport. So we have a service connection to the Wandai Airport, which is metered. Historically, for whatever reason, there's actually additional private poly lines that can run several kilometres further up that road, with the meter still being at the Wandai Airport is where we take it. Under council's obligation, we don't look after that private poly line. So in those particular areas there, we don't want to try and add meters onto private infrastructure, because it then comes back as to who's responsible for maintaining that. And we do have in other cases, there's some in the Nango and some in the Proston area as well, which we currently already have that. And we just don't want to get into that debate as to who's going to replace that infrastructure when it comes up in the future.
Okay, thank you. It's a very comprehensive report. I guess my biggest concern is noting the significant areas around Kingaroy where we've identified future expansion. And I know we talk about full cost recovery once we reach those 10,000 connections. So I guess I see this as something that we normally do under the Water Act that we have to do. But I'm just, I'm curious. So with these areas identified for future expansion, knowing that we're coming up close to that 10,000 connections, I just want to understand what is the process for those areas actually, if they do proceed with their developments in connecting?
Mayor Otto, through you, Councillor Shoemaker, some of these growth areas where you are near a development node relate to development works. And it is required that we consider in the footprint, in the declared service areas, our priority infrastructure area. Now, our priority infrastructure area is a nominated area in relation to our obligations under the planning legislation, where we identify where we have the infrastructure in order to provide a future development with service connection. So in relation to both water and sewage, that priority infrastructure area will demonstrate where we are able to provide those works. So we've taken that into consideration in relationship to this, where we can and where we cannot support those works. I'll try to be really brief in my response. If a proposed development lies outside a priority infrastructure area, it's highly likely that our network will not have the capability to provide it. Certainly that's the case in Kingaroy. In which case a development proceeding outside would be required to provide those works which need to be augmented, upgraded or extended to provide that service to the property. If it falls within the priority infrastructure area, well then they fall under the normal Planning Act approval process, whereby trunk works would be creditable if they've got to be constructed. And that's the major difference. So it does complicate this issue somewhat, and the officers have sought to identify these expansion areas for that reason. So we see that those properties falling outside our PIA and service areas, while identified for future growth, will be required to fund either the bring forward of works or the provision of those works if they're greater than what's been identified in our LGIP, our Local Government Infrastructure Plan.
Thank you, General Manager. Councillor, you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am comfortable with the report. I'm just, mindful, question on notice back on page 97. I did put the question up in terms of how many applications for connection of water and sewage outside the declared area have been made this year since January 2020. And I note that there's been 29 applications received for water and 2 for wastewater. So I just, I'm mindful this is a very important document that we get this right. And clearly, as always, there's that requirement outside the area that we can't service because our current network doesn't provide the infrastructure to do so. So yes, no, I'm comfortable. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, further speakers? Okay, we'll go to the vote then. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you, General Manager. Thank you, Steve, for providing that valuable information. It is indeed a very big part of what Council does, and important consideration each year. 9.1, Notice of Motion, options to refurbish the brick entrance walls on the intersection of Fisher Street and Adderman Drive, Kingaroy at 93. I'd like to now go to Councillor Shoemaker to present such. Thank you, Councillor.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I would like to move a motion that, is it all right if I amend this motion quite now? Yeah. So that council's infrastructure team work with the Parks and Gardens team to remove the graffiti on the brick entrance walls on the intersection of Fisher Street and Adamon Drive, Kingaroy. We can take that next bit up. To there. And that a report detailing any costs or options for further maintenance within council's budget be brought back to the October Standing Committee meeting.
Thank you,
Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Seconder? Councillor Duff, thank you. Councillor Shoemaker?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I know it's been quite tragic in across my division, the amount of vandalism that has occurred, the amount of graffiti that has occurred on private property. And I've reached out to a number of residents in that area. One in particular has a beautiful cottage garden behind those walls on Adamon Drive. And I understand that whilst the developer may have put the infrastructure there when they first built the estate, it's not necessarily council's responsibility. However, it is on council's road corridor. And what I've noticed upon close inspection is there's 3 different colours of paint on those brick walls. And in talking to this elderly resident who lives behind them, she has to back her car out and drive past her beautiful cottage garden and this graffiti every day. She has tried to clean the graffiti off the walls. It's her view that it requires some sort of heavy-duty stripping agent or a powerful pressure clean. She loves the way the walls currently are in terms of their original look and feel, that brick look and feel. However, yes, it's been quite disheartening. She has had some vandalism to her own private fence and she has cleaned that up. However, she has to drive past these graffitied walls, and it's pretty clear when I went for a closer look that this has happened before. It's not the first time. Whilst the recent spate of graffiti in the area was disappointing, it wasn't the first time it's happened. And I guess I'm just looking for council's support to actually do something about it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Other speakers? Let's go to Councillor Duff. Yeah? No? We're good?
Just support what Councillor Shoemaker has said.
Yeah, look, in wrapping up, I support Councillor Shoemaker. It is a busy road. The resident's done the right thing in keeping her property nice. It is on council land. I think Councillor Shoemaker's articulated a strong argument, so I'll be supporting it, certainly. So, okay, let's go to the vote. Those in favour then? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 9.2, notice of motion on Kingaroy roundabouts is at 94. And across to you. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move that council's infrastructure team partner with the Parks and Gardens team to undertake a review of the ongoing maintenance needs, current aesthetics and conditions of existing residential roundabouts in Kingaroy, and that the following items be brought back to the November Standing Committee meeting. A report with a cost-benefit analysis detailing the resources, schedule and costs of the current maintenance and mowing program for these roundabouts versus the approximate costings and reduced maintenance needs should council replace the grassed areas with options such as thick ground cover plantings or concrete. A maintenance strategy to repair, repaint and refresh these roundabouts with a consideration for design options and elements that promote the livability of Kingaroy and maintain a focus on minimising ongoing maintenance costs, and options for how council may consider these works as a project in upcoming LRCI or Works for Queensland funding programs, or how council may make provision in its current budget to make a start on the proposed maintenance strategy with a view to progress these works over the next 2 years. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Duff. Thank you, Councillor Duff. Okay, speakers, Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mr Mayor. I have raised this through Council's customer request system on a number of occasions, and I have had a number of residents who live in Kingaroy bring this up with me. The reality is that we have a number of roundabouts in residential areas across both Division 3 and 4. They are ageing infrastructure, and it was obviously built and right for the time. However, over time we've had to replace the signage has become really damaged. In some cases outside Kingaroy swimming pool, we've actually pulled some of the signs out, which is wonderful because it looked absolutely appalling up until then. It seems like this kind of infrastructure in our town has been forgotten, and we've just continued to maintain what we have, which is wonderful. However, I have seen in other areas where instead of having that sort of centre round area full of love grass, we could replace that with some thick plantings or something that's low maintenance. So my intent here is, by no means am I asking council to support or fund these at this point in time. I'm simply trying to identify this as a key project that people of Kingaroy support and would like to see happen. And I would like some more information about how we might go about it. I have raised the refurbishment of median strips. I've raised how could we repaint the white on some of the median strips around Kingaroy. And I note, the response has been that, well, we don't have a maintenance strategy and that we need to get a project in the pipeline. So my intent here is not to secure council to this project. It's simply to understand what would be involved and to look at putting this project, to get it to a standard where it is shovel ready, and we could adopt approach to make this change over time moving forward. I'm very mindful residents in these areas are paying extremely high levels of rates, and that things like this do really add to the street appeal of our town. So I'm asking for council support and mindful that the learnings that we have with this project might actually inform our other towns and our approach to some of the median strips and things that we have across the South Burnett. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Other speakers, Councillor Duff.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. I support what Councillor Shoemaker is saying. I've been asking for it for a long time, to look at our median strips, to look at our roundabouts, work out better ways to do things more efficiently. I get frustrated when the Parks and Gardens team have to keep putting up witches' hats and traffic control to do all these roundabouts, to do all the median strips, when there is options, I think, for more efficiency and better ways of doing things. So I'm really keen, as Councillor Shoemaker said, to start with this project and use it as some learnings for what we can do across the rest of the region. Thank you, Mr Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Jones.
Yeah, thanks, Mr Mayor. I don't disagree with Councillor Shoemaker's suggestion here. There's a lot of work needs to go into this. I think this needs to be workshopped. This is one thing that I think needs to come back to council. It needs to be put into a forward capital works program, all that sort of stuff. Noting that Councillor Shoemaker acknowledged the fact that to fund it now would be almost impossible, but I would like to see us come back to a workshop with this in regards to progressing it and seeing how we can move forward, and maybe, just for an example, throw $250,000 at it next year's budget and get it moving and get the process going. If it works out to be a $2 million project overall for all the roundabouts in Kingaroy, I would be happy to work through that with the suggestion that we look at it for LRCI and Works for Queensland. There's going to be some disappointed people around when we get into those conversations, because, man alive, we've got a lot of projects adding up to a lot of money with only $5 million to spend, so someone's going to have to miss out. And so I agree with this, but I'd like to see it brought back to a workshop and discuss how we get it into capital works, future works programs or something like that. So to move it forward, I think it's a great idea. Taking on board the suggestion from Councillor Shoemaker that we could possibly paint the white, dress them up or refresh them a little bit until we get the funding, get the process. But I fully support having a look at it, how we get there, and going through a workshop and getting it some sort of a a bit of a plan for future works in our capital works program.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Frolov, did you want to add anything before we wrap up?
Thank you, Mayor. No, I agree, and I think it should be a workshop done, because I think I've added up, there's about 9 roundabouts in Kingaroy when I've done the quick study, and that I know good old little Nanango's got one and that. But yeah, and as Councillor Jones said, when we go through this work for Queensland and LRCI funding, there is a lot of things that we're all gunning for in our areas. So, yep, I totally agree. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Councillor. I'll just add some summarising comments before going back to Councillor Shoemaker to exercise right of reply. Look, I'm very supportive of this. I think it's a tremendous initiative to come forward and undertake a proper analysis by our professional staff, let them bring a report back to council as to what they see as appropriate, what can work, what's going to provide the cost-benefit outcomes that council's looking for. There is a number of roundabouts in Kingaroy. They are aged, they are high maintenance, they are costing, their whole of life cost is significant, and I think from this report there's an opportunity to really drive down that whole of life cost by taking out all of that maintenance, particularly that our Parks and Gardens team are having to do on the grassed and garden areas. And so I'm very supportive of this. I think, there will be certainly an opportunity for, I would imagine in the future, for staff to present that to council as an information sharing session through a workshop, and then we can have an appropriate debate and conversation about it once we've got that information and in a future standing committee meeting. So, I think we're all aware that this needs to be done. I think it's an excellent motion. Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. So, over to you for right of reply. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm just very mindful of what the team currently has and the challenges with resourcing. So I just wanted to check, should we look to extend this out to the December Standing Committee meeting, Manager Jed, and just probably wanted to gauge your thoughts in terms of the proposal put forward. Thank you.
So we got that at the moment, Carrie, coming back to November. Yeah, so what's your thoughts, GM, on Councillor Shoemaker's question? Is that sufficient time?
Mayor Otto, I did actually press my light exactly for that, to raise a discussion about this particular one. This is a really, really good opportunity, in my view, to form a strategy that sets out a pipeline of works in relationship to these things, in relation to the aesthetics and the associated maintenance costs of roundabouts and and other areas in the road reserve, such as medians, etc. I believe that the most strategic way to do that is to look at them as a whole and consider what our costs are operationally and what the capital costs would be. If we do that, we can get a view to what desirable level of service might be and put capital costs on that. And then as opportunities arise, either in your capital program deliberations yourself, but more particularly when funding opportunities come up, we find ourselves in a position where we've investigated what should be done. We've been able to gauge in certain circumstances what the public would like to see, and importantly, what we can afford. So we're able then to select projects from a forward works list that may not be affordable in the short term, as the Deputy Mayor pointed out, but certainly is very considered and wonderful opportunities when grant opportunities arise. So I think it's a great opportunity. It is a large amount of work. It is also a program of works that compete with your other capital priorities. So what I would suggest is that we start a process with appropriate feedback with council. It is not dissimilar on a larger scale to some of the discussions we had about some of the roundabout works and even the Cumbia works. There is quite a lot to do this well, there's quite a lot of work to go into that, let alone for operationally, Parks and Gardens, etc., as operational costs to be considered. So I think that it should be prepared as a process, come up with, I suppose, a strategy for potential capital works, and then be put in a format that you can consider it with all your other priorities. because it might remain a very high priority, but not able to be funded in the short term because of the big call on your capital funds. That does not mean it shouldn't be fully worked out and sit in a list of projects ready to nominate for funding. So that's a very long answer, I'm sorry, Councillor, but I do not think we could be within a bull's roar of being ready in a couple of months. However, we certainly would be ready for your capital budget considerations, along with your others, if we go through a thoughtful process. So I do think that we need to consider some options for it. We do need to follow up those costs and be preparing them, and then have it in a format that you can consider it with your other projects. I note there are other priorities that we are considering, and it seems to me if they're urgent, of course they'll be considered in a budget review process, but normally they would be adding to your deliberations in a programmed and I suppose a thoughtful way. So if the only component of this that we would struggle to resource, keeping in mind we have, I suppose, budgeted for a significant reduction in our capability to do design and planning works. We really focused on the delivery of the current financial year's capital works. That's really where our focus is. So we may come back to you and say, this is a significant study and there's going to be some costs that we hadn't anticipated that we need to pursue. But I think the first step is get a full understanding of what your desires are in relationship to this. And if it's a workshop process you wanted to commence with, happy to support that. I would like to see a time frame that we have this work prepared in preparation for your next capital work program deliberations, if that was appropriate, Mayor.
Thank you, Jim. I'd probably just moderate that by saying that we do, just for your knowledge, we do have, Council has the need to consider somewhere in the order of $8 million worth of capital works, being a renewal and upgrades through a Works for Queensland allocation of $5.63 million. So we have 3 years worth of projects over the current and the subsequent 2 financial years to do some capital works planning on very soon in relation to that. In addition to that, we have another injection of funding from the LRCI through the federal government that will take us up over $8 million. In terms of the total funding that we've got available to us. And that LRCI money is next year. So that's actually work that I understand will normally be completed by late 2022, early 23. So some of these things really need to be resolved because of the timing of the state and federal funding now. It probably brings them forward. So I'd probably be keen to see if we're able to, James, put some resources into getting this back to council before Christmas if possible, because we've got some big decisions to make very soon about a serious amount of money that's going to be, we may not see this money again, so we've got to get it right, and I think this should be considered as part of that. That's just my view, councillors. Yeah.
And I do understand that too. Thank you, Mayor. There will be obviously some low-hanging fruit in relation to all of those projects, and I am aware that it's very soon to be before council in relationship to recommendations of things that you've had on your to-do list potentially for some time. I would expect that a couple of these key locations may well already exist on that list. So I do acknowledge that. I suppose I'm encouraging wherever possible that we prepare a program of forward works. Our current resource capability in the design and planning area is our current operational plan. That's what we've cut our capability back to in the current year. So in relationship to extending works, we may need to seek some additional resource from council to be able to resource it. We won't be able to deliver our commitments to the current operational plan and the capital in our current year with our current resource. We will have to get some extra resource in, I think, in relationship to take full advantage of these available grants that are available now.
Thank you, General Manager, and I'll certainly come back to you, Councillor Shoemaker, but just to manage this particular matter. Mr CEO, question, Madam General Manager, in relation to LRCI and Works for Queensland funding then, there's over $8 million there. Are we able to capitalise the planning and design costs for projects that Council commits to in its budget allocations for those specific programs? So could we fund additional resources for planning and design for roundabouts, for example, if we have resolved to proceed with the completion of that works within the funding timeframes.
Mayor, I'll go first. I'm not sure about LRCI, but my rudimentary understanding of Works for Queensland is the planning phase of it doesn't count. So even if there's I would have to double check, but I thought the money was, the government's intent anyway is to see that money delivered on the ground, so the planning work's done separately. So anyway, yeah, we're certainly happy to follow it up for you and just see what we can, but I wouldn't count on being able to capitalise the planning aspects on it.
Mr. CEO. Sorry, Councillor Shoemaker, back to you to finalise. Thank you.
No, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and certainly thank you, GM Jed, for your comments. My intent with this is not to complicate it. Far from the intent. We've had a number of conversations about the challenges our Parks and Gardens team face around maintaining all these little pieces of infrastructure across the community. And I know operationally that sometimes it makes sense to go forth with a CapEx project such as this to save on those operational costs in the long run. And that can end up being quite significant. My intent is purely to go about this in a very thoughtful and informed and methodical way where council can make a clear decision around a strategy to really refit this infrastructure for the modern day. And through that process, I believe there are efficiencies to be found. I have been quite comprehensive in my motion, but in the same instance, I am relying on the support and the expertise and the advice of the council staff and the team to come back with what a strategy might look like, a maintenance strategy. We're very experienced with maintenance strategies for our roads. We're very experienced through our asset management program. We've got great feedback and data there. I don't want to complicate this. I don't want to take up a lot of resources. I think I could probably do some basic calculations after the comprehensive budgeting workshops that we've done around the costs of operationally maintaining these things versus the cost of spending some money to minimise the maintenance. But I'd really like to see the experts do that work for me. And I guess I'm not by no means, Councillor Jones, insinuating that this needs to go in this current year's Works for Queensland or LRCI, but I'm very mindful in my time of council how important it is to get these projects in a pipeline because it takes a number of years. So what I would like to see, I'll amend that to the December Standing Committee because I know there's quite a lot on at the moment. Please do not spend, spend hours agonising over this. I think we've learned enough through our designs of the various roundabouts that certainly I've seen come forward. Our Parks and Gardens team are on board with planting perennials and different sorts of things. I've seen in many council areas that I've been looking at thick plantings of ground cover that could look quite beautiful with a ring of white paint and some resurfacing on the existing concrete. I think the standard could be lifted quite a lot with minimal investment. So I'm not saying let's go crazy and spend a fortune. What I'm saying is let's do something constructive. Let's listen to the feedback of our community and let's get this project something that is in the pipeline that we can consider as we move forward those capital budgets. And I'm mindful you're right, Councillor Frolov, there are 9 of them, and at the moment they're very daggy. So I would like to see something sort of in the pipeline so that this infrastructure is no longer forgotten, it's refreshed, renewed, and our residents can take some pride in the street because certainly there's plenty of gorgeous front yards around where people are really taking pride in their properties. I think we need to take pride in some of this minor infrastructure that really does support those aspects of livability in our community. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. We'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. 9.3, Notice of Motion Car Parking in Kingaroy at 95. Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Otto. I would like to move a motion that in response to the limited parking available for businesses and their customers on Hailey Street between Youngman and William Street, an investigation to convert existing parallel parks to angle parks be undertaken to determine the current number of parallel car parks, and the anticipated number of car parks if angle parking was to be introduced in the street, and a report detailing how council may safely resolve the current issue of limited parking in Hailey Street between Youngman and William Street be brought back to the October Standing Committee meeting.
Thank you, Councillor. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Fryloff, thank you. Speakers? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Certainly I've been out with Councillor Potter in this part of Kingaroy. There's a number of businesses in that area that have grown over time and are all struggling with car parking for their patrons and their customers, and of course their staff. And it seems in some of the preliminary discussions that I've had with the infrastructure team, this problem may be resolved by introducing, removing the existing parallel parks and introducing angle parks, noting the extensive width of the street. And we may actually come up with a better option by repainting the lines and making that change to support businesses in Hailey Street. So all I'm asking is that the team confirm those sorts of preliminary thoughts, and we once again put this project in the pipeline so that it can be considered in the longer run. I know a lot of businesses in that area are relying on their car parks, and in my first-hand experience, you know, I've had to park all the way down near the Memorial Park, which if you're going to visit some of those services, you may, like a doctor or you may not be able to actually walk that far. So I think this could be a easy fix, and I'd just like council's support in investigating this option.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Okay, we have a seconder. Any more speakers before we go to the vote? No, we'll go to the vote. Those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. While we're on notices of motion, I would just like to put a couple forward if I could. Conscious of time though, I'm just picking up on what Councillor Shoemaker spoke of in relation to the roads and drainage portfolio report around Harris Road, future works, and also heavy vehicle transport through the CBD of Kingaroy. We're going to have a very polished looking CBD in Kingaroy when this is finished. So I want to raise some issues in relation to that as well. The first motion I want to put forward, committee, is that a report be brought back to, and I think we're probably going to do this anyway, but just get this on the books, a report be brought back to the November Standing Committee in relation to future works on Harris Road. James, please interject here if you'd like to push that out to December too. Actually, can we put that to December? I'm just conscious of the work that's going on at the moment, to December, and we've got a number of reports coming back, so let's make that December in relation to future works on Harris Road. So I'd like to move that first of all. Do we have a seconder? Thanks, Councillor Shoemaker. Mr. CEO, any concerns with that?
No, so the question on notice that would be answered next month any which way. Do we need to do that then if we're going to fold that all together?
So there's a question on notice where a report will be brought back.
So we'll just scratch the question on notice. So
Can we? I'd like to actually see a report on this. If that's okay.
No, that's what I'm asking.
It's a big issue for Kingaroy.
Just don't want to double up.
No, can we take the question on notice out? Is that okay?
And the heavy vehicle movements around Kingaroy.
I was going to put that as a second motion.
Yeah. Do you want to put them both together?
No, I want to keep them separate. If we could,
Okay.
Mr. CEO, thanks, because councillors may have a different view on that. So second to Councillor Shoemaker, just want to see something, I suppose, on the books to get a report back. I think it's a really important issue, Harris Road, in terms of movement of vehicles through there. I'm keen to see what options are available in terms of planning for future work. So, other speakers? Councillor Jones?
Yeah, just quickly, Mr. Mayor, I think you've highlighted it as well in your comments there that you're conscious of the amount of work that's going on, and I'd just like to just make sure that the staff feel comfortable with that December, bringing it back to December, because I know that there's a lot of reports been on request. Is that possible without cause? And I don't want to, I'm happy to hear your comments, yeah.
Mayor Otto, through you, Councillor Jones, is it possible? Yes. Is it possible with our internal staff, with their current commitment to the op plan? No. But that's not, if it's a resolution of council in relationship to something that you need, is it physically possible? Yes, we can. But we will need to get resource to assist in relation to a couple of these studies, yet to meet the timelines that are associated. If we were looking at a timeline on major things that aligned with our capital deliberations or something, we do allocate our time to that. But with a number of these additional studies that we need to do, which are important and they are decisions of council, we can get them resourced, but they will not be done with the internal resources of council, given our current commitment to the capital program. We would be impacting our preparedness to start our current capital year's work, for example. So yes, we can. Some of the items that have come up even today's committee are relatively easy, such as the previous one in relationship to the car parking. And that's something we got background information we can pursue. These couple are a bit larger. So I would foreshadow that in order to meet the timelines, I would need to engage some additional resources to do so.
Yeah, so General Manager, that being the case, I was probably thinking that perhaps there's already been some work done on this Harris Road future planning. Is that not the case? I mean, are we actually going back to a blank canvas here? Because if that's the case, I'm comfortable to amend that to push it back further if there's still a lot more work to do to give advice to council on future plans.
Mayor, we will have base data. So none of these things, that we have operations right throughout our road network. So we will have traffic counts and other things. But we do need to, in the situation there, and excusing my lack of full knowledge, I'm looking across at my colleague, General Manager, we have development impacts, we have local road connectivity, and this is a significant road. So there is some work associated with pulling it together and then, more importantly, identifying works that would need to be undertaken, and there lies the challenge. So if we're looking at a road like that, we do have to have a sensible view of what it is then we might seek to do and what costs we would be able to report back to council.
That being the case, I don't want us council spending more operational funding on reports to rush them through. Is it, if we were to give more time, can we then do it internally without having to pay consultants to come in? Because I'm happy to change it to...
Mayor Ott, I was just seeking guidance from my learned colleague to my left. In delivering works that are within a financial year, the capital works particularly, we get really busy early in the year because we need to get the works underway. So my comments before, I would reiterate that we do allow resource later in the financial year to be considering what our priorities are and being guided by council on what we should be investigating. So if council was willing to extend this to have consideration of this particular, I suppose, strategic connection, the Harris Road as a particular route, then we would be able to incorporate that work past about March, which would be our normal focus of preparation of capital works options. So if that timing was okay, then I believe we would be far better placed to be able to respond to it.
Yeah, okay. Okay, Councillor Shoemaker, seconder. Thank you. Okay. Speakers for or against? We go to the vote. Those in... sorry, Councillor Shoemaker.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I was just re-tracking through some of my emails. I've had quite distressed residents in that area since December last year. And I know we have put up some signage, and I did just recently share some more feedback, probably with General Manager Mann, so that's my mistake, sorry, with the change. We have put some J-Brick signage up in the area, and I think that's been noted by the local community, but there are still a number of significant challenges in that area with traffic, and the traffic is only increasing. So by all means, I'm happy for a proper report to be brought back for May so that we can consider this for our capital works projects, capital works going forward. But I am just, very mindful of the challenges for the residents who live in that area, particularly with the increased traffic on the back of the construction of Bunnings, in that area, and of course those constant heavy vehicles using a road that was never designed for heavy vehicles. I think this is a much bigger piece of work in terms of determining what the solution is, but I'm very mindful there are residents in that area who are really struggling at the moment, and ascertain that until before, when the fire and at Swickers had occurred, and when traffic used to travel via Redmonds Road and down into Swickers, and now the bulk of traffic seems to be travelling via Harris to Swickers. And I know Swickers have been very proactive in trying to talk with truck drivers and trying to deter that behaviour. There's also a number of delivery trucks that operate from a compound there on the corner for Followmont that have been in the area. And so I'm mindful this road does need careful consideration. It does need a solution, and we do need to think about the bigger picture here. And I guess May and the lead up to budget discussions is appropriate. So yeah, I'm supportive at this point in time, but I would like council to understand there are residents in the area very much struggling at the moment with the increased traffic on Harris Road. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. So we'll wrap this one up. Let's go to the vote on this one. Are those in favour? Carried unanimously. Thank you all. Secondly now, I think I'll put this one forward as a question on notice, Mr. CEO, to make it easier. Question on notice is, I'm not sure if I've already put this forward, but wanting to get an update on where we're at with, I suppose, stakeholder engagement in relation to heavy vehicle traffic flow through the CBD of Kingaroy. I've already put that one in. Oh, Councillor Shoemaker's is on. Okay, sorry. Oh, yeah, so Councillor Shoemaker's got that, and so that's been noted as a question on notice. Yeah, please leave that under Councillor Shoemaker's. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. And I just probably wanted to say to the committee that I, in my rush this morning to get all the things done, decided to go to Macca's for get my breakfast. And while at Macca's, within a period of 5 minutes, 3 pig trucks, one was a B double, pulled up outside Macca's. And the noise and the smell, let me tell you, was not conducive to me buying a bacon and egg burger this morning. Now, while I may be somewhat trivialising this, it is a serious issue for the community of Kingaroy. We're going to have a very polished product in the CBD of Kingaroy when the KTP is finished. It still concerns and worries me about the fact that we've got pig trucks driving up Hailey Street, stopping at intersection of Youngman and Hailey, driving, and I've seen them many times drive over our median strips to get round the corner. They then stop up outside the Busy Bee, and when they take off at the lights there, they drop their effluent all the way down the gutter that runs across in front of the Busy Bee. Now, I've raised it before. I know Councillor Shoemaker and Councillor Potter are also concerned about it. I would like to see us bring back that question on notice, and I'd like to see us as a council move this forward. I would be very disappointed if we've still got pig trucks driving up Hailey Street once KTP's finished, quite frankly. So look, I'll leave it at that. That was the reason for me wanting to support Councillor Shoemaker's question on notice. Okay, I've had my say on that. 10.1, questions on notice from the last meeting at 96. And Mr. CEO, did you want to run us through those? Thank you.
Mayor, I'm happy. As presented, there was several questions. One, and I appreciate the third question you sent in between the meetings, so we could get it into the agenda. We had the rural and school crossing working backwards, the Proston designated area, how many properties not connected, and then the applications for connection. So, yeah, really probably happy to take questions or just put the information up as requested.
Thanks, Mr. CEO. So, Councillor Shoemaker, in relation to your first two questions, did you want to ask any further questions? You're comfortable with the responses? Thank you, Councillor Shoemaker. Yeah, look, and I'm certainly comfortable with the response in relation to question 3. The rural and school crossing I was hoping we could bring forward, but the funding, the STIP funding is stipulated for 23-24. So if we were to bring that forward, we would have to fund it. that to me would not be a sensible decision. So I'm very happy with the response. Thank you very much, General Manager and staff. Yeah, thanks, James. Councillor Duff?
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Just curious with the Proston town, why there are 104 unconnected properties, 240 connected and 104 not connected? That's my first question.
Thanks, General Manager, and Steve, thank you.
Yes, through the Mayor, councillors. That number includes the whole Highsville area. So within the Proston scheme, we have a whole Highsville area, which is through the Highsville town and the rural areas around Highsville itself. So the connected properties have been predominantly the rural areas on the main street of Highsville where the water main runs, and historical connections and stuff that have been connected through that in the past make up those 104. The unconnected properties, or the 147, are the remainder of the residential areas in Proston that doesn't have any infrastructure, and has been discussed numerous times in the past about how we can connect them to it and the upgrades that have to be done on that. So that, the 68 connected properties there, I suppose I should say, are through the main whole Highsville area in terms of a zone, not just the town itself.
Through Mr Mayor, just the 68, so the Proston town is it's potable water and the Highsville is non-potable water. So just the question then is, the 68 that are listed here as Highsville connected properties, and then there's 36 that are not. That's all still non-potable water?
Yes, that's correct. It's still all non-treated water. All the water through that scheme is not treated, so it is non-potable. So we always recommend to people they shouldn't be drinking in it and bathing it with you would do with normal non-potable water. Typically, those sort of uses would be garden watering and toilet flushing, essentially, which you can do under the Queensland development codes.
Through Mr Mayor, so this one, I don't know if you can answer this, it might need to be a question on notice, but how many residents who live in the village of Highsville are outside the declared water area? Just a point of clarification, so those 147 are outside the declared water area?
Yes, so they're non-connected lots, and they've been excluded from the DSA because there's no infrastructure there to support them.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks very much, Steve. That's excellent. Okay, anything further before we wrap up? Okay, no, well, we've now attended to everything on the agenda, so call the meeting to a close. Oh, sorry, my apologies, yes. Yeah, thank you very much. So the responses to questions raised be received and noted. Do we have a mover? Councillor Shoemaker, thank you. Councillor Duff seconds. Those in favour, carried unanimously. Thank you all. Thank you to the staff for your responses. We'll now declare the meeting closed at 12:54 p.m. Thank you all for your attendance and have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you.